Welcome back, guys. So in this third part of spinal cord, we'll continue doing the white matter of spinal cord. We have already done in the previous two sessions. We have done the external feature of the spinal cord, and then we started with the internal features. And in the internal feature, we divided the center of the spinal cord into a central H-shaped, butterfly-shaped gray matter and a peripheral white matter. So gray matter is divided into your anterior horn, posterior horn, and lateral horn, and these horns are further divided into your gray column nuclei and even the rex laminae. So we have seen that the gray column nuclei and the rex laminae in anterior horn, lateral horn, and the posterior horn in our second part of this class. So in this third part, we'll talk about the white matter. So white matter is nothing but, here the session is all about the tracts of spinal cord. So this is very important for physiology students, because this question will be asked mainly from the physiology point of view. So we'll go in detail. Already madam has done this part of it, so you should find it little bit of comfortable for you guys. Let us begin then. So I already told this particular thing that your white matter means it is myelinated nerve fibers, and again some part is non-myelinated also, but mostly 70 to 80% is your myelinated nerve fiber. The fibers are your axons and dendrite, and these are coated with the sphingolipid, that is what we call as a myelin sheath, a kind of fat, a lipid which is coated along it, which improves the speed of conduction. So the fibers are divided into three types here. So these are sensory, which are ascending, and this itself can be your, these are the one which are sensory or ascending, which will go from the spinal cord to higher center. So higher center include anywhere in the brain, starting from brainstem onward, anywhere in the brain. So these are also, that is the reason they are called ascending tract. Motor tracts are the white matter, bundle of white matter which is coming down from the brain to spinal cord. So this is brain or any other area below the cerebral cortex to spinal cord. So these are termed as your descending tract. Now associations are, they are the one which are running within the same spinal segment, that is why they are also called as the intersegmental, or they may run few segment up they may go, or few segment down they may go, and they run within it. So either they are again divided into intersegmental, that is between, within the same segment they are running across. So that means the right side of your spinal cord is connected to left side and vice versa. So these are called as your association, and association can also be called as your commissural, because they are also anterior white commissure and posterior white commissure are the one through which your right and left part of your white matter communicate with each other. And we also have, of course, the ventral root and the dorsal root. Ventral root comes out and dorsal root goes in. So these are the types of the fibers what we notice in the white matter of spinal cord. Now we have to divide the entire white matter of the spinal cord, which we have already done in the class 2 also, into different columns, and now these columns are also called as funiculus. The word funiculus literally means rope. So this is literal meaning of funiculus, it means rope. So if you actually take the spinal cord like a cucumber, and if you see in the center part, that is the seed part of a cucumber, if you leave it as it is, and the rest of the area if you try to cut and remove, it will be like multiple ropes which are surrounding the central seed part of it. So that is why the funiculus literally means rope. So here you got the posterior, lateral, and anterior funiculus. So let us see these funiculus in this picture. So here we have got the, if you remember from the previous session, we have got anteromedian fissure, then there is a posteromedian sulcus, and you also have anterolateral sulcus on either side, and then there is a posterolateral sulcus also on either side. So the area between your anteromedian fissure and the anterolateral sulcus, which is shown here in the green in color, this is what we call as the anterior funiculus. Now the area between your anterolateral and the posterolateral sulcus, this area which is shown blue in color, that is your lateral funiculus, or also called intermediate funiculus. The area between your posterolateral sulcus and the posteromedian median sulcus is your posterior funiculus. So these are the three funiculi, or the three columns, or the three rope-like structure which are extending all the way from the cervical region to the coccyx region. That is why they are called as a rope or funiculus. Now why it is important, because these rope, if it is something like when we call this as a rope, and if you see the rope, if you open the rope, what do you find? There a rope is made up of so many multiple fibers. There are so many fibers are there inside this. So this rope put together, so hundreds of fibers put together form a rope, and that's you are calling rope. In the same way, these fibers in this case you will see they are your nerve fibers. So nerve fibers put together, now they are forming your tracts. So there are multiple nerve fibers put together, they are forming tracts, and multiple tract put together, they are forming your funiculus. So that's how the concept is being generated. Let us see. Now this is the classification of the tracts which are present in the spinal cord. So what do you understand by a tract, by a literal meaning of a tract? So tract means what? A tract is defined as a collection of nerve fibers. So let me put a separate page for this. So definition of a tract. A tract, by definition, tract means what should come to your mind? It is always a white matter is the one which should come to you. When you say white matter, what should come to your brain? It is they are your nerve fibers. So they are your nerve fibers. So nerve fibers which are mostly myelinated nerve fibers. So this is what should come to your mind every time whenever we say white matter. And in addition to that, you of course you have even the glial cells are there, and there are blood vessels are also there. But mostly a white matter means a nerve fiber should come to your mind, and whenever we use the gray matter, a cell bodies of a neuron should come to your mind. So that should be a working knowledge of gray matter and white matter. What exactly a tract by definition means? A tract is defined as it's a collection of nerve fibers. So what are your nerve fibers? Nerve fibers are your axons. So they are your axons. So it is a collection of your nerve fibers. Very important word, within the CNS, within central nervous system, then only we use the word this as a tract. And the same thing, if it is outside, same nerve fiber which are leaving the brain and spinal cord and coming out, we use the word that time as a nerve, and here we are using them as a tract. So tract and nerve, the difference is the location in addition to the periphery. Plus, apart from having the location within CNS, now there are many nerve fibers are there within CNS, but you are not calling every nerve fiber as a tract. For that, they should be in CNS, that is one part of it, the location wise, plus they should also have same, all the nerve fiber, the bundle, the collection of them should have same origin. They should all start from the same place, same origin, they should have same course, and they should terminate also in the same way. So when a particular group of nerve fiber, myelinated nerve fiber located in the central nervous system are having the similar origin, course and termination, then you define them as a tract. So they can also be called as, the other word for tract can be, so there are many words are there for the tract. So either you call them as a tract, or you can also call them as a bundle, or you can call fasciculi. So this also, you have the nerve fasciculi or muscle fasciculi, or you can simply call these are the bundle of your nerve fibers. And it can also be called as your lemnisci, plural, singular is lemniscus, which literally means ribbon. So here the tract, if they are not going straight like a rope, but they are going like helical like this, like your DNA like this, so then you will call them as if they are going straight, you call this as a tract. But same tract, if it is taking a wavy form, then you use the word as a lemnisci, right? Okay, we'll come across these words also. So now let us classify. Now we know there are tracts are there. There are tracts which are going from the spinal cord to the brain, and there are tracts which are coming from the brain to spinal cord. The one which are going from spinal cord to brain, you call them as ascending tract, and the one which are coming back from the brain to spinal cord, you call them as a descending tract. And interestingly, your ascending tracts are all sensory without any exception, and whereas your descending tracts are motor without any exception. So since ascending and descending is their topography, whereas the information carried by them is sensory and motor. Apart from these long tract called ascending and descending tract, you also have a small or short tract which are running. They are called intersegmental. The word itself says it runs between the segments of your spinal cord. Now these intersegmental tracts, they will run either within the same segment for one or within the same segment, or they may descend or they may ascend, and they may join right half to the left half, or a segment above with the segment below. So these are called intersegmental tract. So not very important tract, but we will just mention few lines about it in our description. So now let us talk about let us list out these tracts what we have. We will be going in detail about every tract. So first we will list out I would like to list out first about our descending, first about your descending tract. Okay, so let us talk about the descending tract first. So descending tracts they are lateral corticospinal tract. Now when we say the word like this, so you have to think of something like when you say how the names have been given. You see, if every tract has got two names are there. There are two names are there in every tract. So that means the nomenclature of tract also has so nomenclature means how do you name. So naming of the tract. So naming of the tract, though we said they have got same origin, course and termination. So here a tract name will have two parts. It means the main and the surname, something like they will always have two parts. So these two parts always indicate one part will indicate the first part always indicate the origin, and the second part will indicate the termination. That's how the tracts have been named. Now if you take an example, because we have a tract of ascending tract, one example if I take, and that being starting from spinal cord and ending in your thalamus. So you call this as spino because it is starting in spinal cord and ending in thalamus, so spinothalamic tract. So this is one example of ascending tract. Same thing. So this is your origin and this one is your termination, not insertion. Anatomy guys, not insertion, okay? You people are trained with that, so it is a termination. Now if we take example of your descending tract, the tract which are descending or coming down. So descending tract example will be, your famous example is your cortico spinal tract. Now here also you can see the first word is your origin. So cortico, it is taking origin from the cortex, that is your cerebral cortex, and it is terminating. This is your terminating into the spinal cord, your anterior horn cell of the spinal cord. So this is the termination. So first part is again this is the origin part and this is the termination part. That's how the names have been given. So if you remember the name of the tract, you will be able to get the idea from where it is starting and where it ending. Between the origin and termination, a tract may take up lot of course. It may go through various parts, various neuroanatomical structure, which we have to remember. Okay. So now here we'll come back to this, and here we were discussing the descending tract. So descending tracts, the first one is here we are saying is a lateral corticospinal tract. So here that means here you got two type. One is lateral, which is running lateral, and other one is anterior. Now what is lateral and what is anterior? If you go back to this one, so if a particular tract is present, if a tract is present in your lateral funiculus, for example, you have a tract here. This is something like a tract is present here in the lateral funiculus, and you have another tract which is present in your anterior funiculus. So thereby you will, and both the tracts are starting from your cerebrum and ending in the spinal cord. So thereby you will call the lateral corticospinal tract, and this one will be your anterior or ventral corticospinal tract. So that's how the names have been given. If the tracts are two, and based on where they terminate in the spinal cord, in which funiculus, the names have been given. And also in the bracket you can notice that one is called as a crossed pyramidal tract, another is called as uncrossed pyramidal tract. So it means to say that when they are coming down, so they, at one particular point they crosses like this and they come down and they are terminating in the spinal cord. So this one is, if this is your midline, they have crossed, and some tract they won't cross, they go as it is in the same line and they are terminating. So thereby this tract which is in the front, which we are calling anterior corticospinal tract, is your uncrossed tract, whereas the one which is here, it is a cross tract. So this detail we'll see it, but right now the words are used, so I just want to have you an idea. Okay, then other than this, we have a tract called rubrospinal tract. You see the word rubro means it means red nucleus, which is present in the midbrain. Rubro is red, and it is again coming back to your spinal cord, anterior horn cell of the spinal cord. So rubrospinal. And then again next you got your tecto. So again the word tectospinal, the word tecto means, tecto word come from the word tectum, which is actually a part again in the nuclei in the midbrain. So it is a new, so both these, if you see, these are all starting from the midbrain and coming to the spinal cord. So these are your midbrain tract. So starting from midbrain and coming to the, so these are your midbrain to spinal cord tract. And these two tracts, if you see, these two tracts are your starting from your cerebral cortex. So this is from the cerebrum to the spinal cord. So when in spinal cord, always it is anterior horn, we said anterior horn is motor horn. So these are all coming and terminating into the anterior horn of the spinal cord. Now if you see here also vestibulospinal, the vestibulo, so it is again from the vestibular nuclei. So vestibular nuclei are present in your pontomedullary junction. So pontomedullary junction or simply pons, again to the spinal cord. Olivospinal, the word olivo again come from the word olivary nucleus. So there is an inferior olivary nucleus again present in your medulla and pons. So this also is your medulla and pons, or brainstem you can say, to your spinal cord again. And reticulospinal, if you see, in which again there are two types, medial and lateral. So one in this is from pons and other is from the medulla oblongata. So you can just put this as a from brainstem again to spinal cord. So these are your tracts, ascending tracts, which are starting from one point to the other point. Now descending tract, and ascending tracts are the one which are again going from spinal cord above. So like you got spinothalamic, so this is starting from spinal cord. Now from spinal cord, here also you have spinal cord, here also you have spinal cord. So that means this is again, whenever any ascending tract is there, which is, we know that it is starting from spinal cord. So spinal cord, the beginning, the which part of the spinal cord it starts from? So it is the posterior horn. So posterior horn of spinal cord, if you remember that butterfly shape, it is also called as your dorsal horn, and it is also called as sensory horn based on the function. Here it is having a multipolar sensory neurons are present here. The same way a descending tract. So this is origin. So this is where it is not it is starting. No, I will not use the word origin. It starts from here. So if it is a starting part in ascending tract, so it is starting from your posterior horn cells. We call posterior horn cells, which will be your sensory neurons. So same way your descending tract, if you look at it, descending tract is a termination now. So here the termination of your tracts are happening in the spinal cord. So in that case, where it will terminate now? It will be in your anterior horn. So anterior horn, which is again also called ventral horn, and it is based on motor horn. So here you got, in this area you got your sensory neurons are present function wise, whereas here you got your motor neurons. In the previous class I told you about this, and the motor neurons again I told are of two type, mainly your alpha motor neuron and your gamma motor neuron. So these are the one, and alpha motor is almost some 70 to 80% neurons are alpha motor neurons. So they all descending tracts come and synapse over this one, and ascending tracts will start from here, the sensory neuron, and they go up. So this is what you have to remember. Okay, so thereby when I say spinothalamic tract, it is from the posterior horn of your spinal cord to your a nuclei, one of the nuclei. So it is called ventroposterolateral VPL nucleus, but right now we can remember this as a thalamus. Thalamus is a part of your diencephalon, if you remember from the previous class. Here again one more, you got spinothalamic. So thereby here also you got one starting in the anterior funiculus, other starting in the posterior funiculus. So if you go back in this, and if you want to put this in this side, anterior and here, one is your anterior, other is your posterior. So anterior and posterior, anterior lateral also it is called. So one is here, so one will be present, it is something like this. So this one is called as an anterior spinothalamic tract, and this can be called as a posterior or even lateral. Why it is posterior? Because with respect to anterior it is behind. For that reason it is called posterior, and it is called lateral because it is present in the lateral funiculus. So both are okay. So anterior and lateral is most commonly accepted thing. So these are starting from this column, and then you also have another one called spinocerebellar. So spinocerebellar also, here only one is mentioned. There should have been one more. So anterior and again posterior. One is missing here, spinocerebellar. So this is starting from your spinal cord, again posterior horn cell, and it is going to the cerebellum. So which part of the cerebellum, that we'll see in the detail of the tract. So these are also two in number. So here what you see in this, if you see here, if you notice, in this case, if you want to put the tract, so these tracts are present in the lateral funiculus. One is posterior like this, another one is in front of it like this. So thereby this, the one in the front you call anterior spinocerebellar tract. This is your posterior spinocerebellar tract. See the word cerebellum, it should not be confused. Cerebellum is different from cerebrum. You see, this is cortico from the cortex, cerebral cortex. This is cerebellum. Yeah, so okay, so here one more is there which is missing from the list. Then you also have a tract. Now these two tracts are also called as, because they are present in the dorsal column or dorsal funiculus. So dorsal column, colum, column tracts, dorsal column tract, or simply you can call also as a dorsal column pathway, both of them together. Now in this, the tract which is medial is called as a, this one is located medially to the, it is just lateral to your posteromedian. So medial tract is called as a fasciculus. The word fasciculus, I remember I told you tract, fasciculus, bundle, lemniscus, so it means the same. So fasciculus gracilis, which is also called tract of Gall, and then there is another tract lateral to it called as a fasciculus cuneatus, also called tract of Burdak. So both are called the dorsal column. So if you come in this one, and if you see in this now, so they are present in the red zone, what you are seeing at the back. So this is also called, this one we are calling as a ventral funiculus. This is your lateral. So this is your posterior, also called as a dorsal. So whatever is present here in this, you call dorsal. So thereby the one which is present between posteromedian and the postero intermediate, or here this sulcus. So that the median tract, this one is what we call as a fasciculus gracilis, also called as a tract of Gall. This tract which is present lateral to it will be your fasciculus cuneatus, also called tract of Burdak. So these are both the tract together is what we call dorsal column, because they are present in the dorsal column of your, or dorsal funiculus, dorsal column pathway together. Okay, so this is what is your idea of this. Now if you come to intersegmental tract, not important for UG point of view, it is only for the sake of knowledge. You should know that there are not only ascending and descending tract, there are some tract which will neither go all the way to your brain, nor they will come from brain all the way down there. So they are just a small, there you can call them as they are local tracts. Local, that means they are only present in one place only within them. That is why they are called as a, so they are other name, commonly you can call them as a local tracts. So they are dorsolateral fasciculus, it is also called tract of leisure. We'll see about them. Septomarginal and comma or semilunar tract, based on what area they connect or based on the shape of the tract, they have been given this name. And what are these local tracts or intersegmental? They run within the segment of the spinal cord. They will not go all the way to the brain. So they will be, they are very short and small tracts. So in this, our plan will be, first we will start with our ascending tracts, then we'll go to our descending tracts, and then we'll only comment about your intersegmental tract. So this will be your idea. Okay. Now, I already told you about the presence of these tracts in the column. So we can also look at this. So here if I put one image here, just to get an idea that which funiculus or which column these tracts are present. This image, if I just use it, here you can, I'll just put it, it's too small, but then okay. Now here in this diagram again, this one in the front is anterior, this is posterior, and these are on the lateral side. Okay, and in the center what you're seeing, this is your butterfly shape or H shape gray matter as it is with the central canal. Okay, so thereby again this one will be here, this area is your anterior funiculus, this area is your lateral funiculus, and this area is your posterior, right and left side, both sides we have got. Now now these tracts, where are the ascending tracts and where are the descending tracts are present with respect to this funiculus. If you know this funicular arrangement of this ascending and descending tract, the next topic which I'll be doing is your brainstem. So because your spinal cord continue up, and before we get a proper brain, there is a brainstem which is separating spinal cord from the brain. So this brainstem will be more or less similar to your spinal cord. So thereby all these tracts which are going up or the tracts which are coming down, descending tract, they will also be found in the spinal cord. So knowing this arrangement will help us to understand and even to know why a particular arrangement. If you take a cut section of your brainstem, like if you cut the brainstem like a cucumber at the medulla, pons or midbrain, you will find certain arrangement of gray and white matter there. So that will be easy to understand if we understand this particular template, right? Especially for the anatomy guys, it is important because you will be getting mostly a 5-marker question from any of these brainstem sections. They are so important. Okay, now let us look at the tracks we are saying. So first you look at the column. We got there is an anterior wide column, so which is again here in the front A, where I have written this one is your anterior wide column. Then there is a lateral ones are here on the side, so where the green this thing, and here also lateral. See, these are all bilateral, both sides. This is lateral, so this one is your anterior, these two are your lateral, and these two are your posterior. So those are your column. Now if you see the descending tract, here we got descending tract, your anterior corticospinal, vestibulospinal, tectospinal, and medial reticulospinal. So these are all the tracts which we have listed in the previous slide. Now these slides are present where? In the anterior wide column. So all of this will be present in your anterior wide column. That is what it says. So that is the arrangement of your these tract in this area. So you can again see here. Here you can find this one is your anterior. Here you got one, and this side one is shown. The rest of the things are shown on the other side of it. Vestibulospinal, but they will be present on both the side, bilateral. It is only for the sake of convenience, it is drawn some here and some there. And then you got vestibulo is not shown in this, so I have another picture we'll see there. Vestibulo, maybe one more picture. Here you can see in this also you can notice. Now all the red ones here which are shown on this side, they are all here. The red ones which are shown this side, they are all your descending tracts, this side, and all blue one which are shown here, they are ascending tract. But that doesn't mean here one side is ascending, other side is descending. Both side you will have both the tracts. It is only for the convenience and to make the figure little simple, we are drawing one side ascending and other side descending, but both are present on both the side. Now look at the tracts which are, if you see the column wise, if you see, so here you can see this one, this is what we call as the anterior, this part of it. So anterior, what all we have here you can see. So there is a anterior, you got your anterior corticospinal one, then you also have your rubrospinal, not rubro, sorry, reticulo. So you also got your, see there is a 1B is there, we got 1B, then there is a 2B is there, 2B is your reticulospinal, then there is a 2C is there, that is a vestibulospinal. There is a location of the tract. Just imagine the tracts are going here and we just made a cut there, and that is the reason that particular spot or boundary we are finding. And then there is a 2D is there, olivospinal. So these are the tracts what we find in your anterior. Here also you see anterior cortico-vestibulospinal and reticulospinal. Tectospinal, this particular figure is not shown, but tectospinal also will be located in the same area. Anyways, this is just an idea. We will find the proper picture in the future slide. There we will get to know. And then next, what are the present which are in the lateral? So lateral corticospinal, rubrospinal, lateral reticulospinal, and hypothalamospinal. So again here you can see here. So 1A is your lateral corticospinal, 2A is your rubrospinal, and your 2B again reticulospinal. This is what we call lateral reticulospinal. Here this one is a medial reticulospinal. So these are your lateral. And very interesting to note that there are no tracts, that is descending tract, present in the posterior column. So posterior column is entirely occupied by your ascending tract. Also please notice that in this area, if I just put the blue thing over the red thing, you will find that this whatever area which is left out here, you see this area. So if I draw it here, that blue color structure, see this all the area whatever is left out. So this will come here, this will come here, this will come here. So these are the area which are occupying, and here whatever area I am leaving out, so this will be here. So that means entire thing is present here, but this area whatever we are leaving here, so this will be all will be bilaterally present this side. So these are your tracts which are arranged this side. Same way if you look at the ascending tracts, which are your sensory tracts, which are shown blue in color, and what we have in the anteriorly, if you see here, they are present in all the three funiculus. So anteriorly you got only one tract called anterior spinothalamic, which you can see in this. Here is your anterior spinothalamic. Here, that is your anterior spinothalamic one. Then in other than this, there are so many in the lateral. Lateral is quite busy. You got lateral spinothalamic, anterior spinocerebellar, posterior spinocerebellar, and spinotectal. You can see here, this is your posterior spinocerebellar, this is your anterior spinocerebellar. You can see the lettering and the numbering with this thing. And this one which you are seeing in the inside, that is your lateral spinothalamic tract. and your this one is your spino-olivary tract. So all these are present in your lateral, more or less they are in the lateral side. And then posteriorly you got fasciculus gracilis, also called tract of Gall, and fasciculus cuneatus, also called tract of Burdak. So you can see the medial one is your gracilis, and your lateral one is your, this one is your cuneatus. Yeah, so that's the way to remember this. Okay, so those are your location of your tracts in ascending and descending tract. So this one you have to remember it. Now you may also notice here what is happening in this particular figure. There are some numbers are written there which are actually the label, but other than that, if you see, they are also showing, you see S, L, T, H and C, which also shows what exactly it is. So it means your sacral fibers are located medially, sacral, lumbar, thoracic and cervical. So you have the arrangement of the fiber from medial to lateral is sacral to cervical. So that is in your what do you call your gracilis and cuneatus. Same thing if you see in case of your lateral spinothalamic, here it is reverse. The medial most fiber is cervical and the lateral most fiber are your sacral. So similarly, you have even your lateral corticospinal where cervical is medial and the sacral is lateral. So that means to say all the fibers which are this portion will be seen only in the cervical region. These portions are in the thoracic region. This is in the lumbar region and this is in the sacral region. So as we go down from top to bottom, we will see the tract is actually changing the shape in this way. Is that okay? So this is about your arrangement that we call as somatotropic arrangement I told in the previous class. Now from this point onward, we'll talk about our ascending tracts of spinal cord. So ascending tracts of spinal cord, they are also called as your sensory tracts. They're important tract. In the exam you can get a essay, physiology guys. Anatomy, so far they are not asking this. They used to ask in the OS, but now they're not asking. But it is always easy, better to understand, and the reason why we have to understand this, because if you don't understand the tract, you cannot understand the brainstem. That is very strange that they are not asking the tract, but they are definitely asking the brainstem section. So it is something where they are not asking the numericals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and all, but they are definitely asking 1 plus 1 is 2 and 2 minus 1 is 1. So to get that concept, you definitely have to know the numericals. So that means to understand the brainstem section, you definitely have to be thorough with the spinal cord tracts. So that's in the other way around, you have to know them. Okay. So these sensory tracts, so there are so many are there. They are your lateral spinothalamic tract, anterior spinothalamic tract, posterior spinothalamic tract, anterior spinocerebellar. Again, one is missing here. So I said that one is your posterior spinocerebellar tract. Then in addition to this, we have fasciculus gracilis, also called tract of Gall. Fasciculus cuneatus, also called tract of Burdak. So these are the important tract, but there are some other tracts are also there, which are from the spinal cord to the tectum, that is a midbrain, from spinal cord to the inferior olivary nucleus, that is your pons and medulla, from the spinal cord to the reticular formation, that is to the whole entire brainstem. So these tracts are minor tracts. The functions are not very clearly known, but these tracts also exist. So we'll talk about them. From the exam point of view, not important. From exam point of view, the upper tracts are important. This is not important, but this one particular slide I have dedicated to this because these tracts have been located, but their exact function is still not known. Now, so we have known the tract. So what happens if you take a blade and cut this cucumber or snake from medial to lateral or lateral to medial, or through and through from one end to the other end? Either you give a half cut or you give a through and through cut. So what happened in that case? So you will have the following symptoms will be there. So there is a tract which we call as a spinothalamic. You have seen from the spinal cord to the thalamus. In this again there is a ventral or anterior and lateral, but apart from not getting into the detail, this tract is responsible for your pain and temperature. So that means if there is any lesion or any injury to this fibers or this electrical wire, pain and temperature will not be felt below the wherever you are giving a cut at, from that point onward below on the opposite side. Why opposite side? Because these fibers are crossing from one side to other side and you are crossing on this side, so opposite side sensation will not be there. Anyways, we'll see in the details as we go down there. And then similarly you also have touch. So touch can be classified into crude touch, fine touch. So what exactly is a fine touch? Fine touch is the one where you are able to discriminate between two things. So that is what we call as a discriminative touch. A crude touch is something, a hard touch, where you cannot make out. If you touch things and you cannot say what type of touch that is what we call crude. But then if you are able to make out a feather touch and different, you can discriminate the touches, then that is a fine touch. So both these, so you can see the crude touch is also carried by. So thereby you can say spinothalamic tract is not only responsible for pain and temperature, but it is also responsible for your crude touch, also called simple touch or the light touch. Whereas your fine touch or discriminative touch is coming from another tract, and that tract is what we call dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, which is nothing but your tract of Gall and tract of Burdak, which is also called as a gracilis, that is your fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus. So there are so many names are there for this, the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway, or your gracilis or cuneatus, also called as a Burdak. This is an important tract, and the function of this tract is, apart from taking the information of fine touch, it is also responsible for your conscious proprioception. Conscious proprioception means joint sense and positions, and even after the eyes are closed, you are able to tell where your body parts are lying or where is what is happening. All that proprioception, joint sense and position sense what you have, which you are aware of it, that conscious sense along with the fine touch is carried by your dorsal column pathway. Then you also have a anterior and posterior ventral or dorsal spinocerebellar tracts are there. These are responsible for the unconscious proprioception. So there are so many joint sense and position sense are there unknowingly, which are acting when we walk on the road, or when we are actually standing, or we are trying to balance without any support. That time these unconscious proprioceptors, which are carried by these two tracts to the brain and vestibular apparatus, will help us to carry out the function. So thereby the function wise, if you see, you got pain and temperature, then you got a crude touch and fine touch, then conscious proprioception and unconscious proprioception. These all are carried by your ascending pathway. So these are, so any injury in these tracts will have the loss of these functions. Now we have to, before we go into the tract, we have to understand, so what exactly is a tract? Tract is nothing but, you can imagine the tract as a train. So there is a, always a train will have, these are your windows of it, bogie, and then this is another compartment, and this is one more there. So thereby now this is maybe possibly I'll call this a engine. Okay, so this one is your engine. So now the train is going on a tract. So this is what is happening now. Now this train, whenever this train reaches the destination, then only the information will be carried out, or the passenger gets down, that is a nerve impulse which is getting down, and thereby the response comes. So now what we are looking here is, when we are saying that this train is passing through it, it has to reach several stations. So suppose for example it will reach a station 1, then it will pass through this, and then it will go there, and then it will reach a station 2, then again it will go and reach the station 3, so on and so forth. So to every station it is actually going, and it is unloading. There are passengers which will get down here, there are passengers which will get down, or and there are passengers which, so thereby there is a some kind of a relay is happening at every station. So similar to this concept, if you look at this are ascending tracts. So ascending tracts are starting as your receptor, which are present in the skin or the muscle, like your pain and temperature. Here I told you, like pain and temperature or touch, if you see. So if someone touches your skin, or you are taking a hot water bath, so that information from the skin is carried by these axon what you are seeing, and they go and they are again ending it onto the another axon. So this axon is present, or this particular neuron where the information is first received, this we call as a first neuron, or in the order it is in the first, so that is why it is called as a first order neuron, or simply you can call as a first neuron. So first neuron take the information from the receptor, like your skin, muscle, joint, tendon, or whatever, and the information will be processed in the your cell body, and via its process it is again relayed into the spinal cord. So now in the spinal cord it is relaying the information. So this is where the second synapse, first synapse is happening here. This was a neuromuscular junction possibly, and here is a synapse which is happening now. So from here the second neuron is starting. So the second neuron is what we call as the second order neuron. So this is in case of your spinal nerve. So spinal nerve is carrying the information and it goes to spinal cord. What happens if the same information is carried by your cranial nerves? So like something from your facial muscle. So then in that case, it will, instead of, because in the above you don't have the spinal cord, you got the brainstem. There we use the word brain. So that is the reason we say your first order neurons relay In case of your spinal cord, in case of your spinal nerve, it is relying in your spinal cord. In case of your cranial nerve, it relays in the brainstem. Now from here, the second order neuron is starting. You can see the cell body here, and these are the axons again here, and they take the information all the way. Now they reach, whether it is coming from spinal cord or it is coming from your brainstem. In case of your cranial nerve, the destination is same. So here these are reaching and ending in your thalamus. Now from thalamus again, a third neuron starts, so we call this a third order neuron, and it will go take the information and finally ending into your cerebral cortex. So this is what we call as a order. So here you can see that in a peripheral nervous system, you got one neuron, that is your efferent neuron, or you can call first order neuron, which is bring the information from your receptors, sense organs, sensor, and then the remaining, your second and the third remaining two are present in your either in your brainstem or your spinal cord, or in the remaining ones are your thalamus. So these are what we call as your ascending tracts. So thereby you can say ascending tracts carry the impulses or information from periphery to the brain. That is what we know. It contains chain of first, second and third order neurons. The first order neuron is always a pseudo unipolar neuron. You see the picture which is shown the blue color. A pseudo unipolar neuron will not have a very identifiable axon and dendrite. Instead, what they will have, a pseudo unipolar neuron will have a cell body, and there are two processes are there. A process which is getting information from your receptor, like your skin. So this process, what we call, because it is coming from the periphery, you call this as a peripheral process. This process will come and it is bringing the information. Information will get processed in your cell body of this neuron, and then the same information leaves via another process. This process is going to the spinal cord in case of your spinal nerve, and brainstem in case of your cranial nerve. This is what we call as a central process. So thereby the information come via peripheral process, get processed in the your cell body of a neuron, and then taken via the central process to the brain or spinal cord. So here such neurons are called as a pseudo unipolar. It looks like as if it is a single pole. It is again see, unipolar is this one, just one axon. Here also it is like looking like one, but they have got two. So that is why it is called a pseudo unipolar neuron, and they are present in your dorsal root ganglion of your spinal cord. I think spinal nerve. I feel everyone knows what is the dorsal root ganglion. Okay. The last session I have shown you in the spinal cord segment there in the thickest bulbar swelling in the posterior nerve root. Now, so let us see. A simple will be, these are your tracts what we have, the main tract, and you can see here your spinothalamic tract. If you're noticing here, the spinothalamic tract is the one which is starting from the spinal cord, from the posterior horn, and going to the thalamus. You can see it is here is your, this one is your starting point. So remember, this guy will receive the information like this. So this one is here from the skin, or here from the periphery it is starting. Information goes via this first neuron and it is carried, and from there it will go all the way. You see the path, it is going from the spinal cord, then it will enter the medulla oblongata. See, the train is going to medulla. It is something like a train crossing all the station or the states. So spinal cord, medulla oblongata, pons, midbrain in that order, and finally they reach the thalamus, and here it terminates. So from here to here it is a single entire neuron is there what you have, and from here you will have your third order neuron which will go all the way and end in your cortex, cerebral cortex. So that is your spinothalamic. Similarly, if you look at your spinotectum, so the tectum is a nucleus present in your midbrain. You see it is ending in the midbrain. So starting all the way spinal cord, medulla, pons, and ending in the midbrain. And here these are spinocerebellar. So here they will end in the cerebellum. So here instead of going directly to cerebellum, which in case posterior, if you notice, posterior spinocerebellar tract start from the spinal cord, goes all the way, reaches the medulla oblongata, and in the medulla oblongata directly it is going to the cerebellum. That is posterior. Whereas the anterior, if you see, it starts from spinal cord, goes to your medulla, goes to your pons, and even enters the midbrain. Then it takes a turn, crosses, and then come back, and then it is joining back this. So this is the course of your anterior spinocerebellar, different from posterior spinocerebellar. This is a simplistic way to understand that how these tracks will be traveling. Now I already told you the tracks. So now we are looking at the ascending tracks. So for us, the ascending tracks, we know the tracks are present in all the three columns we have. So thereby there is in your anterior wide column we got our ascending tract which is located in your anterior. Spinothalamic is present in the anterior wide column. Similarly, your lateral wide column, you got the lateral spinothalamic, anterior spinocerebellar, posterior spinocerebellar, and spinotectal. Whereas in your posterior wide column, you got the dorsal column pathway, that is your fasciculus gracilis, is also called tract of Gall, and fasciculus cuneate is also called tract of Burdak. Same thing again and again, again and again. I am repeating. Now we are looking at these tracts now. This will be seeing later. Now this is a transverse section. The picture is taken from Snell's Neuroanatomy, quite a standard reference textbook as far as the nervous system is concerned. Now this picture you can draw what is shown. It is a this itself can be, for anatomy guys, this itself can be a 5 marker or a 3 marker question, and if you know this particular template or picture, it will be very easy to understand the brainstem also. And for physiology guys, if you know this, it will be helping you to understand the rest of the tract pathway also. Now here if you see, notice, so this is the same picture. We can see again this side is shown as a, this part is showing your descending tracts. But again, as I told you, the tracts are present, both tracts on both sides, and this side we have showing ascending tract. So in the anterior column you got anterior spinothalamic, only one, whereas your posterior you got two. The medial is called fasciculus gracilis and lateral is called fasciculus cuneatus. The rest of the tracts are in intermediate, that is your spino-olivary, anterior spinocerebellar, lateral spinocerebellar, and your posterior spinocerebellar. These are your tract what we are seeing. And in addition to these are all, this again here also you can see on this side, if you come, that is descending tract, you don't have any tract in your posterior column as far as your descending tracts are concerned on motor tract. So in the anterior you got again here this one which is shown here. This is your anterior corticospinal tract. Then you have your tectospinal tract, vestibulospinal tract. These are here present in your anterior. And the lateral also, here lateral starts is your olivospinal, lateral reticulo. Here ventral reticulo is not shown. Here medial reticulospinal is not shown. And rubrospinal and your lateral corticospinal. So these are the tracts which we have in the lateral column. Clear? And also in this picture we can also see your intersegmental tract which is shown here. I told intersegmental tracts are the short tract local tracts which are present. Again one more is here, posterolateral tract. So these are your intersegmental tract shown in the picture. Okay, so this is the transverse section of the spinal cord which is taken at the mid cervical level. So if you go section little lower down, the section will slightly change. Okay, it's a general arrangement of your ascending descending tract. So here we mentioned that there is a, in all of this here we mentioned that what is something very important here is your this part, that is always the first order neuron for your ascending tract is your pseudo unipolar neuron of the dorsal root ganglion. So before, because if it is a first order station, it is a first station for every train to start, so then it is very essential for us to understand the depth of the station. So this one is your spinal cord. You can see here cut section of spinal cord. This is your anterior and this is posterior. Now here you can see this is your thumb, and from the finger you prick the finger or you put the what do you call a candle light burn on the index finger. So the pain and the touch sensation and the temperature sensation, hot sensation is traveled all the way, the arrow is showing, and it goes to the central part which we call as a cell body. So this is what we call, this process what we call peripheral process. So it is a peripheral process of your pseudo unipolar neuron. Then this one is a cell body of a pseudo unipolar neuron, and then information goes back to the spinal cord on the posterior horn or the dorsal horn via your central process. So thereby a pseudo unipolar will have a peripheral process, cell body, and a central process. So here there is no synapse. The information is taken, processed, and it is relayed. So it is synapsing here in the spinal cord in the dorsal horn. So this is how you look at this one. This is how your pseudo unipolar will look like, and this is how the bipolar looks like. What is the difference here? In the pseudo unipolar there is no clear-cut differentiation of axon and dendrite, whereas in bipolar, wherever the information is coming towards the cell body, you call them as a dendrite. Wherever the information is leaving away from the cell body, you call them as an axon. But in this case, we can call, possibly if this I am calling as a periphery, so this as a peripheral process can be called as your dendrite, and the central process can be called as your axon. It is just a relative comparison. Yes. So this is just, since it is present in the spinal cord, it is also spinal nerve root, it is also called as the spinal ganglion. And since it is present here, you will have in the front ventral root, and there is a dorsal root. Since it is present in the dorsal root, it is also called as the dorsal root. The reason why the ganglion is used, because here it will not have single. It is only for simplicity, we are only talking in terms of a single neuron, but in reality you will have hundreds of them. So a collection of cell body outside the nervous system is what we call as a ganglion. That is the reason we are using the word ganglion. And for anatomy guys, in histology also, you will do spinal ganglion or your dorsal root ganglion. Okay. Now Bell-Magnate law, this is important for physiology guys, because this they have asked. For anatomy guys also. Now what happened is, now we are learning about the first station, that is the dorsal root ganglion. So we know the ganglion there, but we have to know how the information is passing there. So what this Bell-Magnate law says, the law says that all the modalities. So what do you mean by modalities? The modalities means something like your vibration, pressure, muscle tension, muscle length, stretch of the skin, or pain, temperature, any of these sensory modalities what we have. So all the modalities of sensation, they are reaching the spinal cord by way of dorsal nerve root. This is what the law says. That means you will not, there is no other way by which your sensation reaches the spinal cord other than dorsal nerve root. This is the law, and the law has no exception, and this is what we call Bell-Magnate law. As per this law, every sensation reaches the spinal cord only and only by your dorsal nerve root, and never by your ventral nerve root. That is what is the Bell-Magnate law. Now here we know your, if you know your pseudo-unipolar, we said pseudo-unipolar will have a body, and it has got a, this one is your peripheral process, which is bringing your information from the periphery, and this is called central process because it goes to your spinal cord. So thereby all this, what are the information which is brought by a peripheral process? So what are here, it is actually going and coming in contact with your different receptors. So these are the receptors which are present in the skin, muscle, your joint, tendon of a muscle, all of it. So thereby, for to detect different information, there are different receptors are there. You cannot expect that only one sensor or receptor is present there, and that only is bringing the heat information or bringing the pain information. So that is not possible. So thereby there is a division of labor is there. There are different receptors are present at the periphery, which are present within our skin. They are called as your receptors or the sensor. Now you can see here a peripheral process of the spinal cord. You can see a peripheral process of the spinal ganglion cell reaches. So you can see the peripheral process of the spinal ganglion cell reach all these receptors. So you can see these are all here, multiple are shown. These are all the round ones are your cell bodies, all of this, and all these are your peripheral process, all of it. And these are your central process on this side. So these peripheral processes are actually, you see, they are coming from different receptors or sense organ. This you might have studied in your physiology also. So they are coming from your exteroceptive receptors. So these are the receptors which are present in the skin. So extra means outside, and the same way you got the receptors which are bringing the information of joint sin and position sins which are present in the joint, bone, and the muscle. They are called proprioceptive receptor. And there are interoceptive receptor which are present inside the blood vessel and your viscera, your organ inside. So thereby you can classify a sensor or receptor into three types: exteroceptive, which are located within the skin; proprioceptive, which are located within the muscle, tendon, bones, and joint; and interoceptive, which are present, intro is inside within the blood vessel wall and the wall of the internal viscera. So this is from where your central, your peripheral receptor will of the spinal ganglion will bring the information. Once all these ganglion bring the information and it get processed in your cell body, then the information is passing from your central process. Now the central process information also, it is very interesting that we know that all these are passing through. You see there is this particular sulcus is there, this sulcus or this sulcus, and this sulcus is what we call. So we say all the central process will form. You see that bundle it is forming, you can call as a dorsal root. It forms a root which is entering in the dorsal horn, that is why it is called dorsal root, and it is entering the spinal cord at this sulcus. So this sulcus is what we call as the posterolateral sulcus. This was again explained to you in your previous class. So we can say that all the central process combined together form a dorsal root which enter the spinal cord at the posterolateral sulcus. I hope things are easy and clear so far. Now, from where all this information is coming? So that means for peripheral process bringing information from your exteroceptor, proprioceptor, and interoceptor. So let us see what are this information which it is bringing from. So here we have got these sense organs, different sense organs which are present within your body or your skin or your muscle, bone, tendon and the viscera. So they are all specialized to form different. So like for you to the sensor or receptor which detect vibration and pressure, which is shown here, and these are called as here name is given Pacinian corpuscles. So in physiology you might have read about this. Pacinian corpuscles are the receptor present which detect the vibration and the pressure sense. Similarly, change in the length of a muscle is detected by your muscle spindle. This is a spindle extra, you might have in muscle spindle, again inside that you got your extrafusal and intrafusal fiber. So change in the length of the muscle is brought about, or information is given by your muscle spindle. Same way, change in the muscle tension, this was the length and this is the tension of the muscle, and this is by your Golgi tendon organ, so which are present again in the tendon. It is present near the tendon which are closer to the joint. So the information of the muscle tension come from this area, and the skin stretch information is brought about by a nerve ending which is having a capsule around it, encapsulated ending. And for pain there is no modification at the terminal, it is just simply the free nerve ending. But here these are all the modification, Pacinian, and here you got your muscle spindle, then there is a Golgi tendon organ, and this is some fine. So thereby these are very specialized, but this one is totally basic, a naked nerve ending which is responsible for detecting the pain. Now this is another picture here just to show you that how these information is coming. The slide looks little busy, but just pay attention here. It is very simple. Just to see this one, what we are seeing, this is your muscle. This is your muscle, a fleshy muscle, skeletal muscle you are seeing. This one is your humerus here, and this one is your radius and ulna we are seeing. And this one is your elbow joint. Now you see the information which is coming. First look at the red one. The first red, this one. So this is the information which it is bringing. Now this information is coming from your muscle. Again, yes, in the muscle also it is from here. You can see inside, if you cut the muscle, these are all the muscle fasciculars you can see. All this round, these are all muscle fasciculars. So this information, muscle fascicle, this is what we call as alpha motor neuron. So alpha motor neuron is coming and supplying to all this. Thereby they contract, and that is how the muscle contraction happen. The same way you also have a gamma motor neuron, axon, which are coming and there. So alpha motor neuron is to the extrafusal. So these are all called as extrafusal muscle fiber. And this one you see the gamma motor, this is going inside. So inside your muscle you have got intrafusal also. From this intrafusal muscle fiber it is bringing the information now. So this is the intrafusal muscle fiber. This is to stimulate. Extrafusal by alpha motor is stimulating and bringing about the contraction, whereas your gamma motor is actually responsible for your muscle tone or the tension. So this is again the second one. Say both are coming from here. Both the red ones again are coming from here. This one is your anterior horn, whereas the remaining ones are all from your posterior, the blue color, your dorsal root or the posterior horn. So you got, you see, you have 1A or A alpha. So the A alpha is again, these are the fibers which are, you see, just go to the arrow and you will get to know. See, go to this arrow, and this is the thick arrow what we have going down, and this is the one which you see. So this information is, this is what we call as a annulospiral endings. For this you have to go back to your physiology to understand this. I am not getting into the detail. So these fibers, what they are doing, they are responsible for bringing proprioception. That is it, proprioception, joint position sense of the muscle and all. Then you also have your A beta fibers. So these are another kind of your axons which are again coming from, so you can see this is the one, and this goes here, and you see this kind of terminal nerve ending is what we call as a, this one is what we call as a your flower spray. This one was your annulospiral ending. These are your flower spray. Now they are also responsible for the proprioception. How this proprioception different from this proprioception, that is physiology, will not get into that. And you can also see here, these are your Pacinian corpuscle, that coin like or flat this. So they are definitely responsible for bringing your pressure changes from the muscle. You also have your A delta fibers, which are the free nerve ending. You see here, they are free nerve endings, and they are responsible for your pain and some form of the pain producing or pressure producing pain. So these are all we are having the information from your muscle. Similarly, from this is what is your tendon, and from the tendon here we have a organ we call the Golgi tendon organ, and this is responsible for your proprioception. So here also we call, here whatever we had, your A alpha was your A alpha. This one is also called A alpha only, but this is 1B type. So this is the one which is bringing information from Golgi tendon, 1B A alpha, whereas 1A alpha bring the information from your muscle fiber. So this is the same information from muscle fiber, this is the same information from your Golgi tendon organ or the, yeah. So again you can see we have the similar information coming from the joints also. These are the same thing, and this is your detailed view of your muscle spindle, which is showing here. This one is your extrafusal fibers here. These are your inside intramucosal muscle fiber. They are showing your flower. These are your flower spray ending, and this one is your, see, like a spiral. These are your annulospiral ending, and those are your, this is your alpha, and this is your gamma. Same thing above, it's become lower down there. This is just the information, because all this whatever I told from where and how. So what happens beyond this is what I have explained you in this. So from here, all these tracks which are going, all of these tracks. So all of this tract, if you see, these tracks will go up, and they are, all these are what? They are all here, except your, what do you call, the red ones, except the red one. All the blue ones are here, one which are taking the information from here, and these are all your peripheral process of your dorsal root ganglion, all the blue ones. They go up and then they become the central process and they relay in the spinal cord. Whereas the red ones are the one which are bringing the information. So these are here coming from your ventral root. So red ones are coming out towards this and the blue ones are taking in. So you can say the red ones are your descending tract here, whereas the blue ones are your ascending tract here. So between this, what the blue is taking and what the red is bringing, in between them you got your brain and spinal cord. So it will go through spinal cord, then it will go through brain, then it will come back as a red one and coming out like this. So this is again, so we said all it is forming a bundle. So we told that this is a peripheral process bringing the information from all of this, and here it is forming a bundle, and this bundle is what we call dorsal root. It is ending at your posterolateral sulcus. Here also you see it is again dividing into a larger medial division. You see this is the midline here, so thereby this we call a larger medial division and a very smaller lateral division. So that means the nerve fiber is simply not entering. Again they are divided medial and lateral. So medial division is thickly myelinated. If you see this medial division what we have here, this has got myelination all around it. So there will be a lipid coating will be there around it for your faster conduction. Whereas your lateral division, which you see very thin, they don't have myelination. So they are either very thinly myelinated or they don't have myelination at all. So thereby this conduction velocity or speed velocity here will be slow compared to this one. So based on this, again if you take this medial bundle and if you do the speed conduction test, speed velocity or velocity conduction test in these all fiber, you will find that medial is again divided into two types. So here we call this the group 1 and group 2. Whereas your lateral one also, if you do here and here also, you will find two type of fiber. These are called as a group 3 fibers and group 4 fiber. Remember, group 1 and group 2 are your heavily myelinated, so they are faster one. Whereas your group 3 and group 4, they are thinly myelinated to non-myelinated. So myelination will definitely decide the conduction velocity at what which. So it is something like if you say anything is myelinated, the speed at which the impulse will travel will be very high. Okay. So let us look at these. Here you already have a table now. You can see here group 1 that is in the medial and the group 2 also medial. They are thickly myelinated. So here you see conduction velocity is given. You don't have to remember any of this. This is just for your information. It is 70 to 120 meters per second. You can imagine the speed is current is traveling at 70 to 120 meter per second in group 1. And here what are the example we have in this? They are called as a alpha. Both are alpha only. One A alpha is one A type and the B type. B type is present in the tendon, Golgi tendon organ, whereas the A type is present in the muscle spindle. So the same thing here, I already told this one here also. You can see the color coding. Orange is there, here is this is the orange one. So which I have already made. And then there is a green one is there. So this is a green one. So these are the information which is we have already discussed in the previous slide. So this is the information which are your group 1 fiber, which are thickly myelinated. Group 2, the speed velocity is coming down. You see it is 30 to 70 meters per second. And here they are also again from the muscle spindle and the skin. And so they are again, you can see here, these are the ones. So they are also called as a beta fiber. So these are your, this is A alpha, these are your A beta fibers. Here this is your beta fiber which I showed you. They start from your flower spray. So that one is your flower spray from here, and they take the information all the way up there. Now the lateral division, this is your lateral division. Lateral division is in group 3 is thinly myelinated, where the speed is further reduced. It is 12 to 30 meter per second. It is relatively fast in your lateral division. Lateral division you have unmyelinated and myelinated. Here you see the speed, so compared to this one is a faster division. So group 3 is faster division, and they are like your A delta fibers. So they are carrying the discriminative pain, that is sharp pain. Discriminative pain is a sharp pain in temperature. So that means you have two type of pain. So a sharp pain is something like when a glass pricks or a nail pricks or needle pricks, you feel the sharpness. Another dull pain is something like your a menstrual cramp pain or a headache. Those are your dull pain, so which is a non-discriminative pain. So sharp discriminative pain is carried at 12 to 30 meter per second via the lateral division. And here you can see these are the pain fibers which are already the naked nerve ending. So here I'll put this as a double star. So the one which I've already did the orange or red coloring. So those are the fibers which are coming from there. Finally, you have the group 4 fiber of the lateral division. These are totally unmyelinated, no lipid coating at all. They are the slow fiber. You can see the speed is 0.5 to 2 meter per second. So here these are aching pain, the dull pain. And this is what the visceral sensation, like when your bladder is full, that time you want to pass the urine and it is giving some kind of sensation that is also associated with the pain. So that kind, you can bear it. Menstrual pain, the headaches also, not the every kind of headache, but then mild headaches are there which are again visceral pain. And when stomach is too full or too empty, hunger prangs also are your visceral sensation. And even your defecation also is giving some sort of your stretch, and that also give rise to pain. So these are all the visceral sensation which are carried by your group 4 lateral division unmyelinated fiber at the speed of 0.5 to 2 meter per second. So this also will be one among these fibers only. Yeah. So this is all about your everything which is starting at your first order neuron, which is very important. We learned about pseudo unipolar. We said they are pseudo unipolar, peripheral process, central process, body. Peripheral process bringing the information from all different types of receptors, that is your extraceptors, proprioceptors and interoceptors. Then we have seen a different types of your extraceptors and proprioceptors like Pacinian corpuscle, Golgi tendon organ, then muscle spindle, skin stretch, everything what we have noticed there, and how these informations are carried by different velocities. Based on that we have Bell-Magendie law, then the myelinated, unmyelinated fiber, ventral and the medial and the lateral division of your dorsal root. So that's all about in detail how the first order neuron is happening. So let us start our spinothalamic tract. Now spinothalamic tracts are your ascending tract. So we are doing the ascending tracts, and this one is our first tract. Now the name itself says spino, means it should start from your spinal cord. Again, where from the spinal cord? It should start in the spinal cord from where? From your gray matter. Which gray matter? It should start from gray matter. Which one? From the posterior horn. Posterior horn is a gray matter. And in the posterior horn, it is starting from here. So posterior horn, here we have your neurons. So these are your sensory neurons. So it is something it starts from. So that means every pathway will start from dorsal ganglion, that is just the pseudo unipolar ganglion. From there it will come to spinal cord. From there it is a sensory neurons from where it starts. So these sensory neurons, you remember I told you in the posterior horn we have got, if you remember the gray matter, we have a gray column. We call this as a gray column or gray nuclei. Nucleus proprius, Clark's column, substantia gelatinosa, those are your gray nuclear column. And we also mentioned the rex laminae. So we have to know which lamina, which number lamina it starts from, and which particular nucleus it will be. Your dorsal root ganglia will come and synapse. So this information, and it will reach the thalamus. So thalamus, where in thalamus, which nuclei? Again, thalamus is also made up of multiple nuclei. So which nucleus of the thalamus it will relay. And when it is reaching from the spinal cord to thalamus, what are the things it will come across in between, and what happened to this tract, whether it will cross or it will remain on the same side. It's a very important tract from exam point of view, because this is the one which is carrying your pain and temperature, and it is also the one which is carrying your non-discriminative or crude touch. So in the exam for physiology you can get this as a essay. So in what way the question can be asked? They can ask you the question is describe in detail about pain and temperature pathway. This is one way to ask the same thing instead of asking spinothalamic. Or otherwise they can ask describe the touch pathway. So when they ask touch pathway, touch is again two types. There is a crude touch or non-discriminative or rough touch, and discriminative or sharp touch or fine touch. So this pathway we are doing right now. So this pathway, when we do both the pathway, you have to write when the touch pathway is asked. And there are even questions where interestingly they will ask whether from the upper limb or the lower limb. So there also we have the path. So let us begin there. Now this is a simplistic line diagram to understand the basic layout, how the tract will start. So here you can see this one will start from your receptor. So this one is your pain. So pain means what it will be, there will be a naked nerve ending. So it should start from here. So this is, here we have the pain and temperature. So pain and temperature, we said it should start like from your naked nerve ending. So from naked nerve ending directly, which are coming from the skin and the muscle, it start from there. This is what we call as a peripheral process, from where the information is coming. And here is a cell body of your dorsal ganglion. And from here, this one is your central process. Information goes now that this part, it has entered the spinal cord in the posterior horn, and here it is coming in, it is synapsing over here posterior horn. You can see posterior horn of spinal cord. This is where the synapses happen. The information is given. Now you see the midline, what you see, this is the midline. So it is crossing. So it crosses. So whether it is crossing at the same level or it ascends few segments and then cross, the detail we'll see in the couple of slides. But this particular tract will cross. So that means whatever the information it is bringing from your one side, for example, it is bringing information right now from the right side of the body, it is taking the information to the left side of the brain by crossing. It is crossed. Now it is crossing and moving all the way up, and then as soon as it starts, so that means you can say the axons of your second order neuron, you can call them as a tract, because the moment it comes and synapse in your posterior horn of spinal cord, and then the axons start going upward. So that is what we call them as a tract or the funiculus. So it is ascending in your lateral and the anterior column of the or funiculus of the spinal cord. It keeps on going up, enter the foramen magnum, then brainstem, that is medulla oblongata, pons, midbrain, and finally reaches the thalamus. There it ends in the thalamus, and there the third neuron starts. So that we call it the third order neuron start from there. Then it is going and reaching your parietal cortex. You remember the parietal lobe. So parietal lobe is responsible for your sensation. That is why it is also called sensory cortex, with the broadband area number 3, 2, and 1. This is where the information is ending. So this is where you have got the entire body map is present, which we call as a sensory homunculus. So depending on where it is relaying, that's how the information is carried. This is what is the basic pathway. Yeah. So let us see now. So again, the journey from your thalamus till your cortex. So this journey is also not that simple. Here also what happens is, in between them it passes through. So from here it will pass through a bundle of white matter, which we call as the internal capsule. So which part of internal capsule is one. Then above that it will pass through, this is what we call, this area is what we call as the corona radiata, because it is spreading like a rays. It is only one is there. If all these so many are shown, it is like a radiation. So this is a corona radiata, and finally it is ending into the posterior lobe or the parietal lobe with area number 3, 2, and 1. We call this a sensory cortex because it is bringing the sensation of your pain, temperature, and touch. So this is the basic plan. Now this is the theory. Now theory I can read because it is the same thing what I told just now. Now there are two tracts are there. There is anterior, also called ventral, and the lateral. So anterior spinothalamic tract carries light, which is simple non-discriminative touch. That means you cannot make out the difference between two. It is just a touch. Whereas your lateral carries pain and temperature. So this information is carried by this bundle, and this information is carried by this bundle. Now we are putting side by side that we can compare both the track, how they are ascending. So for both first order neuron is dorsal root ganglion. So there is no change in that. It is same as it is. Then you got your central process. So peripheral process bring the information, and the central process which is coming, it will not come and relay directly. You see the central process, central process is ascends up to 7 segment on the same side. Whereas here the central process of this ascend up to 2 segment, same side. So this is again we have to understand that immediately it will not come and synapse. It will come inside and then it will climb up. So in case of your ventral or anterior 7 spinal segment it is climbing. Here it will climb only for 2 segment on the same side. Now, yeah, this is just an example. You can see from the skin it is starting, which we call the area of skin separated by single spinal nerve called dermato. From the skin it starts. Now that's your, this one is your peripheral process, this is your central process. Now this central process which I am telling right now, this will not come and immediately synapse here. So what is happening is, this one is actually, it is going up, so it is going for 7 segment in case of your ventral and 2 segment in case of your lateral. Then after reaching there, now assuming that it has reached there, then it is coming and synapsing over your neuron, sensory neuron present in the posterior dorsal horn of your spinal cord. So that is the journey way. So we have reached this part of it. Now same thing you try to see in this. In this also, this is the ventral, this is your lateral. So ventral is for your non-discriminative touch and lateral is for your pain and temperature. You can see the blue color is your ventral and the green color is your lateral. So in this case, it just comes here, and the journey which I told 7 segment and all, that part is not shown. It is just coming that this has already taken care of your 7 segment and this has already taken care of your 2 segment. They come, this is your dorsal root ganglion, these are your central processes, and this is what is your neuron present in the dorsal horn or the posterior horn of the spinal cord. So this is where they relay, and now they are crossing, you see. They cross to the opposite side. This part we are still done only till here. So let us see the next explanation. Now second order neuron, which is lamina 4, 5 and 6. You see here this lamina in this particular table, lamina 1, lamina 2, lamina rex lamina. So that means it will come, enter here, and it is where it is ending. It is ending in the lamina 4, 5 and 6. So here it will come and it will synapse in these 3 lamina, which is on this side. Whereas for this also it is the same thing, lamina 4 to 6 in the posterior horn. So if you want to know which 4 to 6 you see, 4 to 6 will be your nucleus proprius. So you can see for nucleus proprius correspond to 4 to 6 lamina. Now after this, now the axon will cross. Now you can see here, once they come here, we are seeing, so this one, this area is your lamina 4 to 6 or nucleus proprius which has come. Now they are crossing. So you see they are going through your, this one if you notice, this is your anterior wide commissure. So it is passing through your anterior wide commissure, go to the opposite side. This is a midline. So they have crossed to the opposite side. And once you cross, you see the one which is anterior, it comes and lies in the anterior funiculus, and from there it ascends. The green one goes and lies in the lateral, and from there it ascends. So thereby once they come here, they form the bundle, and that is why when we take the cut section, we are finding the, you can see here, we are finding this one, you can see this one is your lateral and this one is your anterior or ventral. Those are your spinothalamic tract. So we have reached this here. So then they ascend from this point as a anti-spinothalamic tract, and this one as a lateral spinothalamic tract. Now they ascend now, so both of this now will merge. So that means till now they were all separate. Here you can see now they are ascending as a single bundle. Both will combine together. Now they are lying in the same sheet, so they ascend together as a single bundle. So ascend as a part. Now they are called as a spinal lemniscus. So that the merging of your anterior and lateral spinothalamic tract. Of course, a spinotectal, there is one more tract is there which I will tell later. So these all the 3 tract will club together, and now you have a new name to it. Instead of calling them as a spinothalamic, you can call this as a lemniscus. Now why the word lemniscus is used, I told you lemniscus means it is something like a ribbon. So it is not going straight. It is, instead of going straight like this, it is actually turning and going like this way. That is the reason it is called as a lemniscus. So in this case, we have reached here. So this was your lamina 4 to 6 or nucleus proprius, and then from there it has crossed. This is where we can say before it reaches your brainstem, here it has crossed already. So both have crossed, and then after crossing they are ascending up. Now this part is what we are calling as a spinal lemniscus, right? This is what we are calling as a spinal lemniscus. Now we have got spinal lemniscus. Now the spinal lemniscus, here also you can see we are here. Now it is passing through medulla. It passes through medulla. So thereby when you take a section in the medulla oblongata, you will come across this blue line and the green line, and that time there the word will be there, a round dot will be there, and it will be labeled here in the section of medulla oblongata as a spinal lemniscus, or it can be also labeled as a spinothalamic tract. So now you know from where the spinothalamic tract came. Now it will go from medulla. Suppose medulla is your first floor. Now it is going through the pons. So through the pons also. So you will find spinal lemniscus even in the pons also. Then it will go through your midbrain. So there also you will go through the midbrain. So here also you will find your lemniscus. So thereby usually till your lower medulla and all, it is called as a spinothalamic tract. But after that, they change the word to the spinal lemniscus. Those detail we'll see in the brainstem section. But spinothalamic tract or spinal lemniscus, both are one and the same. So anatomy guys can get a question as a 5 marker as a spinal lemniscus. Whereas the physiology guys will get a straight question as the name of the tract or the question based on the function. So it is passing through the midbrain and finally, so thereby these 3 area is what we call as your brainstem. So from the spinal cord, it has gone through the brainstem. If you see here, this is where the brainstem. So this is the entire journey is brainstem. Finally, it is ending into your thalamus. So you can see here we have got thalamus. So here this is your thalamus, right and left thalamus. So it is going and ending there, and from there your third order neurons are starting for both. And here the nucleus where it is terminating, because your thalamus itself is made up of so many nuclei, very specific nucleus it is ending on, and that nucleus has been identified as a VPL, which stands for ventro-posterolateral nucleus. Now why ventro-posterolateral? It is ventral, posterior and lateral. When we do the thalamus, that time you will know what is this VPL nucleus. But right now from there the third order neurons start, and both of these are going to your sensory cortex. It is not that again it is crossing here. There is no crossing. It is just they go and they will reach your sensory cortex. So here you have got the entire representation of your body. The whole body is represented here. So you have got your feet, legs and all are present above. Then here, this is your foot here, this is your leg here. Here you got the perineal area. These are your back and face and everything. So there is the entire human body. So here will be the head. So this is the head here, this is the back, hand, leg, all this. So the inverted representation is there. So thereby if you are touching some a hot object or something painful in your toe, so the information where it will relay to this part. So toe is here represented. The same thing if you have a pimple on the face, and that in this will be, so in this area you will have the information, which so you will be able to get the information from this part because it is representing the face here. So this is, which I already told you, from here this is the anterior and this one is the lateral ascending up there. So now you see this I already told you. Continuing the tract, so anterior spinothalamic tract, third order neuron will relay in the ventro-posterolateral nucleus of thalamus. Even third order for this also is in the same nucleus. Then axon from the thalamus is coming out. So axon is just like here, suppose if you come back to this one, and this is your thalamus. So from thalamus what happened is there are and fibers are going in all this direction like this. Thalamus is like a sun, and these are all the fibers which are going in all direction. So these radiations, so these are called radiations. So thereby the one which is going above, suppose if this is your thalamus and this is your superior and this is your inferior, so these called as a superior thalamic radiation. This will be called as an anterior thalamic radiation. This we call as a posterior thalamic radiation. This will be called as a inferior thalamic radiation. So thereby among all these radiation, so once the relay happen in the VPL here, the information is traveling through your superior thalamic radiation. Superior thalamic radiation. So that's exactly is what. So very specifically now we are saying that this part, which I call now as its thalamic radiation, so there is a name to it. This name is the superior thalamic radiation. So this part is what we call superior thalamic radiation. So it is passing from superior thalamic radiation, that is one on both the sides. So they both go through the same bundle. Then they passes through internal capsule. So if you know your internal capsule in this picture, so this one I told you, if I draw it here, so this is your superior thalamic radiation, and if I draw the internal capsule, so this one is your, so this is your, let me draw it a little better. So this is the internal capsule, bundle of white matter again. This we call as a posterior limb. This is called as a genu, and this is the anterior limb. Now this fiber which has reached here up there, after synapsing, the fibers will come through the posterior limb, and then they are ascending up. So thereby this portion what is you are seeing here, if I change the color, so this area, this is what we call as a superior thalamic radiation. Then it is passing through your posterior limb of internal capsule. Then before it reaches your sensory cortex, now this area from the internal capsule to your cortex, this area is what we call, because from here also the fibers will radiate now. will spread like this. So thereby it is also called as a corona radiata. So corona means it is actually a crown, radiating crown. So thereby, to give you a very simple idea, so how exactly this happen, so this is simple. You take it, everything is happening like this. So there is a thalamus is there. From thalamus you will have the radiations are there. I told you these are just nothing but these are the incoming and outgoing fiber from the thalamus. Each one is called superior, inferior, anterior, posterior thalamic radiation. So then from here the information will go through your next part will be your internal capsule. So this is internal capsule which has got anterior limb, genu is the bend, and posterior. This detail will be there later on when I am doing the later part of it. This is, we have to understand this now, and later here is suppose is your cerebral cortex. This is your cortex. Now this all area which is between internal capsule and all this all entire part is what we call as your corona radiata, because it is radiating like a crown. Corona radiata. So that means every tract which is coming and terminating to your, suppose now if I take a tract, the tract has come all the way from like this, it is laid here, and then third order neuron start. It should go through any one of these radiation, through any one part of your internal capsule, through any part of your corona radiata, then finally it should end into your cortex. So which cortex? It depends. If it is a ascending tract, it should be a sensory cortex, and if I are talking your descending tract, then the fibers will start from here. Yeah, this is the understanding. So this is what exactly I tried to explain here in this side. So here will be your here I can say the internal capsule, and this will be your corona radiata, right? Okay, you can see here I was telling that they pass through superior thalamic radiation on both the side, then they pass via the posterior limb of internal capsule, yes, posterior limb of internal capsule, then they go through your corona radiata, both are corona radiata, finally they are ending into the cerebral cortex. Where in the cerebral cortex? This is your parietal lobe. In the parietal lobe there is an area called post-central gyrus, area number 3, 1 and 2, both are ending in the same. Central sulcus, behind central sulcus you got your post-central sulcus. So between central sulcus and post-central sulcus we have a post-central gyrus. So there again it is divided into from anterior to posterior 3 area number 3, area number 1, area number 2, broadband area. This is where they come and they end there. So this is what is your so here where we were, this is what is your, I told you, and here the information was, it is passing now from here, it goes through your internal capsule, the next part internal capsule, then it will pass through your, before internal capsule there was your thalamic radiation. So first, as soon as it comes out, it passes from thalamic radiation. They are your fibers coming from thalamus, then they pass through another bundle of fiber called internal capsule, then they go through another bundle called as a corona radiata. This all is your white matter only, all this entire white. So that means from your thalamus till your cerebral cortex, this entire white matter is divided into these 3 parts, corona radiata, and finally it is ending into area 3, 1 and 2 in your post-central gyrus, which is located in your parietal lobe. You know the parietal lobe of cortex, so this is where it is ending. Now this is in a picture I have taken from the netter. Now this image is beautiful. Once you have understood all of this, it will give you the clear-cut idea. Now you see here. So here what is happening is, here we have so many pathways are there. Here we have to take only pain and temperature first. You see this one is your, this is your pain and temperature first, and then here you got your touch also. So touch is our blue one, and pain and temperature is red. Remember the touch is our touch one is our ventral or anterior spinothalamic, and pain is our lateral spinothalamic. So you can see these fibers which are starting from here, and you can see first we will trace the pain. See, it is going all the way. This is the dorsal peripheral process, central process. Now it is laying in your lamina. It is crossing to the opposite side, and it is now came to the lateral side. That is where we see we take a section here, and this is area we are calling this lateral spinothalamic tract, the section of spinal cord. Same thing, you trace your touch pathway. It is going the same as it is crossing it. Only difference is that the point of ascent and point of descent are different. So it is the blue one comes here. Now this one, it is coming to the front part of it. So this is what we call the anterior spinothalamic. Here starts and this is lateral. So those are the bundle. Now they both are ascending separately for some time, and once they reach your brainstem, they combine. So you see in the lower middle oblongata they are now together, and from there also they are going up now. Further they are moving up here, and here they are now becoming your medial, your spinal lemniscus. Sorry, the word spinal lemniscus is not mentioned. The green, this one is your, it has become your spinal lemniscus. Spinothalamic tract is your spinal lemniscus. So now it is ascending up as a spinal lemniscus. It is passing through your pons. Now here it is going through your midbrain. So it is going through the midbrain, green one you can see. From there it is going up now. You can see it has synapse now into your ventropostal nucleus, VPL, of your thalamus. From there it is passing through your internal capsule. You see this white part which is shown here. This side you can see this white area which you are seeing between two gray, that is your internal capsule. And then this part, this entire part what you are seeing the white, that is all is your corona radiata. So it is now passing through corona radiata, and finally you see this, the dark area at the periphery, that is your cortex. That means here you got again the neuron. It will come and synapse in the neurons which are present in this area. I hope you have understood this part of it. If you follow one tract, one ascending tract, if you follow detail, rest of the tracts are same as it is. You have to just remember and by heart where they ascend, which laminae, rex laminae they will synapse, how many segments they will ascend up, whether they will cross or they won't cross, and which area number it will terminate. All this you have to by heart, but understanding is only with one thing. So that is the reason I spend more time in making you understand the first tract. Rest of the tract will be able to go quite fast. Now this is again the same thing, which is again and again part is there. Now this is the cerebrum, what you are seeing, the superolateral surface, and here we can see this red line. If you are noticing this one, this is your central sulcus. This one in the front, this is your precentral sulcus, and the yellow is your precentral gyrus. This one is your blue one is a postcentral sulcus. So between your precentral and the postcentral, the pink area what you are seeing. So this pink area here, the number is written as 3. It should be actually our area number 312, right? So area number is 312. So here we have those number. It is actually yeah, you can see this. It is looking like a 7 here, but anyway. So this is your area number 3, then 3, then in between is 1, and then 2. So 312. So these are your area into which it is coming in, laying into this. So 312. Now if I take a blade and I cut the brain like this, like a pineapple or watermelon through and through, and then if I show you, then you will see that the entire from here to here, that means I told you here you have got your inner side, you got your leg and all. Here you have a face, leg, everything, that entire body is represented. So it is something like someone has taken your photograph, they made it small, they inverted it and put it back like a cassette in this part of the brain. So this we call as a somatosensory cortex, because it is bringing the information from soma. Soma means body wall, and what information? Sensory. That is why it is called somatosensory cortex. It is also called as a primary cortex, primary sensory cortex. That is the other name for this. Now you can see what I have done here. The same pineapple cut we have taken. It is something like a cut is made like this. Once you make a cut like this, this is what you will see. This is that same cut what is we have got. Now if you see this cut, so this is what exactly a homunculus literally means a little human being. So it is a representation of your entire body in the brain. In what form? It is, one is it is inverted. You see the foot is somewhere up and the face is somewhere down. So this is something, and then it is inverted, plus it is disproportionate. What do you disproportionate? That means you see your trunk, you see the trunk is got so big. Such a small area representation is there for trunk. But you see the vagina. Vagina has got a big representation because of its sexual arousal. And you can see lips also got bigger. Face also got bigger. But you see your arm or your head, again thumb. So thereby this is why it is not appropriate. So whatever if your trunk is big, you should have a big representation. But the trunk representation is small. That is why we call disproportionate. So inverted, disproportionate, opposite, contralateral. Contralateral means opposite side representation of body. of body image or body map is what we call as a homunculus. Now these homunculus are of two types. One is what we call motor homunculus, that will be for your descending pathway. Other is for your sensory. So this one, what we are seeing, what I am showing you here is a somatosensory homunculus map. So this one is your medial and that. So if you go medial to lateral, the entire body is represented here. You can see genitalia, toes, foot, leg, hip, trunk, neck, head, shoulder, arm, elbow. Everything is there all the way till your pharynx. So depending on if I take a pen electrode and stimulate this area, suppose I stimulate the lip part of it, this area if I stimulate, you will get the sensation over your lips, because this is something like a remote control of your lip in this area. And same thing if you take this out and make a human out of it based on this homunculus map. So this is how the human will look like. You can see here, so there are bigger lips are there, and there are bigger arms are there, and bigger hands are there, bigger legs, toes are there, and bigger genitalia are also there, because these are the areas where the sensation is very high. So that is the reason a mosquito sitting on your face or even the hair follicle on your face, you will be able to differentiate. But same thing, if a mosquito is sitting on your back, you will not know, because the representation of the back is small compared to the representation of your face, which is high. It is something like your 2-point discrimination exam you might have done in your physiology, where 2-point discrimination is very clearly seen, or it is highest in your face, lips and your palm, but is least in your back area because of this homunculus representation what we have. So all our tracts are coming and they are ending into this part. Depending on from where the tract is starting, they will come and they end into this area. Is that okay? So those are your lateral tract. Now posterior column tract. So posterior column tract is nothing but the tracts which are present in your posterior funiculus. They are your medial tract called fasciculus gracilis, lateral tract called fasciculus cuneatus. I always used to get confused which is medial and which is lateral. So I came up with a strategy. So G for like something like a girl, and C is like a cover. So it is something like our family people, mother, daughter, sister, whoever is the female. When we go out, what we do, we try to actually cover them from the stranger. We keep them inside, and this is where we walk. So we are the cover and they are the protector. So that is how I remember that the girl is inside and cover is outside. So gracilis and cuneatus. Okay. Now this is also called as a dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway. So why it is called dorsal column? Because it is present. Posterior column is also called dorsal column. Now why it is called as a medial lemniscus? We have learned about the spinal lemniscus. This is a new word called medial lemniscus. Now these tract, once it goes up, that means both your gracile and cuneatus tract, once it goes to the brainstem, it will also club together and it will also form a single white matter bundle, a ribbon, and then we call that as a medial lemniscus. That is the reason it is also called as a dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway. Now a simple line diagram will be, they start as a first neuron as a posterior, that is your dorsal root ganglion neuron 1, start from the receptors. And what is the information carried by the posterior column pathway or dorsal column pathway? They carry your fine touch or discrimination. Fine touch, then your conscious proprioception, your 2-point discrimination, pressure sense, vibration sense, all of it. Now when you have all these are there, then why do we need 2 tract? One tract can do it. So is it that some tract will carry this and some tract will carry the other? No. Both the tract will carry the all the information, but one tract carry information from one part of the body, and other tract will carry the information from other part of the body. So that we will see now here. So here you can just imagine both the tracts are starting. One is gracile funiculus fasciculus, other is cuneate fasciculus. They start, they again relay in your spinal cord in the dorsal. They don't relay. So they start from there, they come here, and this is interesting that they are not relaying in the spinal cord. They keep ascend, they will come, and you can see here. They are relaying actually in your medulla oblongata. We'll see this one as we go down there, and they will cross here. You see they are crossing, and they crosses in the brainstem, and they go on the other side, and now you call this combined pathway as a medial lemniscus. Again reaches the same nucleus of your thalamus, VPL nucleus, again via your thalamic radiation, internal capsule, corona radiata to your sensory cortex area 3, 2 and 1. It is all same. It is just that we have to know what function, what fibers it is carrying. This is one, and where it is crossing, what point it is crossing, number 2. This is what, and where it is becoming a medial lemniscus. These are the detail we have to know. Now these are posterior column tracts. These are 2 tracts. So medial tract is called fasciculus gracilis, also called tract of Gall. A lateral tract is called as a fasciculus cuneatus. It is also called as a tractus Burdak. Now these both the tracts are carrying a fine touch, that is discriminative touch, pressure sense, vibration sense, conscious proprioception, stereognosis, that is ability to perceive two objects as a different object, or to imagine if you keep your hand in the pocket and you can say this is a pen drive, this is a coin, this is a pencil, this is an eraser. So that ability to perceive the object and identify without looking at them is what we call stereognosis. So all this hi-fi information, pain, temperature and crude touch is a basic information. That is the reason we call here spinothalamic tract as a old tract, archy tract, whereas this posterior column tracts are called as a new tract, because this is a very highly defined filtered information which is not seen in the lower animals. So this is what we already said, that where they are present, medial and lateral, posteriorly. Now let us see. Now here we have the fasciculus gracilis on this side and fasciculus cuneatus on this side. So first order neuron for both, as we already said, Bell-Magendie law, they are always a dorsal root ganglion. Second order, you see, it is the nucleus present in the medulla, and the nucleus is called nucleus gracilis. That is why it is also called as a fasciculus gracilis. Fasciculus means it is a bundle of white matter of gracilis. So it will go and end into the gracile nucleus, which is located in medulla oblongata. This will go and end into the cuneate nucleus located in medulla oblongata. That means it is not relaying in your spinal cord. So the relay is not happening in the spinal cord. Let us see what is it. The second order neuron is starting. So it comes in relay in the spinal cord, and let us go up there. Now once the axon goes up, so they are decussiating. So the decussiation means crossing. Crossing is not happening again in the spinal cord, but it is happening again only in the brainstem. So once you cross, so that crossing is called as the internal arcuate fiber. So the crossing is called as the internal arcuate fiber, because they are becoming the arc. And internal because there is an external arcuate fiber is also there. We'll see that later. And once they cross, and then they are ascending up on the opposite side as a medial lemniscus. And this is the ribbon. That is why we call this as a lemniscus, like this. So that means when you take a section of the brainstem, maybe in your middle oblongate it is lying here. So in the pons it will lie here. In the midbrain it will lie here. That is the reason you see this shape is here. This one is here. This one is here. That is the reason the same name structure, when you do the brainstem section, we find them at a different location because of this reason. So here I'll come to this one. Let us see this part, then I'll go there. So again here you got your gracilis is your red one. The red one is your gracilis and the blue one is your cuneatus. They start from your peripheral receptor, dorsal ganglion. You see they came and they are relaying into your rex laminae, and they are ascending up all the way, reaches the medulla oblongata, and there you got a nucleus called as the nucleus cuneatus and nucleus gracilis. Nucleus gracilis is the medial nucleus, cuneatus is the lateral. Same like here what we have medial and lateral. So this ascending part is what we have seen as your dorsal column pathway and spinal cord, and your somatotrophic organization is your cervical is inside and the sacral is outside. Now from here the second order neuron starts, and here this is the one you see here, the crossing is happening. Until now it is on the same side. So once they cross, these crossed fiber is what we call as the internal arcuate fiber. So usually we take a section at this part in the medulla oblongata, and this crossing is also called as your sensory decussation, because these are your sensory fiber. They are going to opposite side. This crossing is also called as a sensory decussation. So when we are doing the medulla oblongata, I will say one of the section we take at this level where this is happening. So this we call section at the sensory decussation of medulla oblongata, where you are after crossing these cuneate and gracile fibers are called as the internal arcuate fiber. Now both the fibers are ascending up now. And what do you call this now? They are ascending up. They go through the pons. They reaches the midbrain. Now they are called as the medial lemniscus. So spinal lemniscus is your anterior and lateral spinothalamic tract, whereas a medial lemniscus is your dorsal column pathway, gracile and cuneate nucleus. They go all the way from the midbrain, then they go and they are laying into the same nucleus that ventropostero VPL nucleus, and from there third order neuron starts, and they passes again through your thalamic radiation, internal capsule, and through the corona radiata to the body. Again, I told you this is the entire body what we have. Now, third order neuron is to the ventroposterolateral. This also third order ventroposterolateral. Again, internal capsule, same posterior limb of internal capsule, same, and finally reaching the sensory cortex, area number 3, 1 and 2. Now, why do we have two tracks if they are doing everything same, ditto? Now, this is your fasciculus gracilis is present throughout the length. That means it is present from your C1 level all the way till your coccyx level. It is through and through tract. But whereas this one is present only from C1 till your mid thoracic, that is your T6 level only. So your fasciculus cuneatus is extending only till mid thoracic, whereas this is present the entire length. So since it is present only till mid thoracic, which one? Your cuneatus. So this is bringing the information like touch, fine touch, proprioception, stereognosis, and all those information whatever I listed out from the upper limb and your upper trunk. So that means you can say something like your volume 1 of your BD choracea is your fasciculus cuneatus, because that is your upper trunk and that is nothing your thorax and your upper trunk. The same way, this is extending entire length. So this one is your lower trunk and your lower extremity. It is something like your volume 2, BDC volume 2. This is your BDC volume 1. So cuneatus is upper part and gracilis is the lower part. So again, how do we remember this one? So it is something like the guard. You put it, cricket guard is put where you know to protect the genital area. So that means the lower part. So that is the reason lower trunk and lower extremity. So that is how you remember. So once you remember, then this is C is opposite of this, that is to the upper trunk and upper extremity. That is why we have 2. So if they are asking in physiology, very interesting questions have asked. They say a pathway starting from the lower limb. That means a pain pathway starting from the lower limb, not pain pathway, what do you call? Touch pathway, fine touch pathway starting from lower limb. If that is asked the question, trace the fine touch pathway or touch pathway from lower limb or conscious proprioception from lower limb, then please write only fasciculus gracilis. If they mention upper limb, only write fasciculus cuneatus. If they don't mention any of the part, then you will write both as a dorsal column pathway or posterior column pathway. So you have to read. I think madam has given once a question like this, an essay question, where she has mentioned upper limb one pathway and lower limb one pathway. So upper limb is your fasciculus cuneatus, lower limb is your fasciculus gracilis. Clear? So here it is again same, the dorsal root ganglion, first order. This one is happening in this case. For this case here, this is medulla oblongata. You see here, this one is change here. Now this is laying in the medulla, whereas before it was written as a posterior horn of spinal cord. But here the second order is happening in medulla. So now here it is becoming your, this part you call this as a medial lemniscus. So here it is becoming medial lemniscus, ascending as a medial lemniscus. Then VPL nucleus of thalamus as it is. Then it passes through your thalamic radiation, then your posterior limb of internal capsule, then corona radiata, then area number 3, 1 and 2 as it is. Yeah, crossing is happening here in the brainstem only, whereas crossing for your spinothalamic tract has happened at the spinal cord. So here it is in the brainstem. So this is again same pathway. This also is showing again, so from the various receptor, touch and proprioceptive information, both the fibers are ascending up, you can see. And this is your spinal cord section. It is going all the way. This is your medulla. These are your nucleus gracilis, nucleus cuneatus, and they are your internal arcuate fiber. Crossing is happening. Now you call this the medial lemniscus, going through your, this one is your pons, going through midbrain and reaching to thalamus, VPL nucleus, third order neuron starts, passes through posterior limb of internal capsule, then corona radiata and your area number 3, 1 and 2 of somatosensory cortex. So now if you do, just see this is a section at the spinal cord. Just you take a section here in the medulla oblongata, this is what you will see. If you take a section, see this is the medulla at the lower medulla, this is the medulla after crossing. Look at the shape of the lemniscus. So here it is like a oval, here it is something like a little L shape, and here it is becoming something like a drop, water drop, and here it is again a vertical water drop or a mango. So these shapes are changing because the tract is not going straight, it is actually going like this, wavy. That is the reason at some area it is taking a different shape. So that is why it is called as a lemniscus and not the tract. Got it? Now this is again the same netter image. So in this case our tract is now purple tract here. So can you see the purple here? So that's a purple. So this one is coming from your lumbar region. That is means lumbar region means which tract? It is your gracilis or cuneatus. From lumbar, G for guard, so lower limb. So that is this is your gracilis tract, which is your purple color, which is coming from the posterior column, and from here this one is coming from your spinal part. So that means this is from your upper limb, this purple. Both are purple only. Both comes and both are going. You see this tract is remaining on the medial side. This tract is remaining on the lateral side. This is how you call this one as your medial is your gracilis and the lateral is cuneatus. Please observe this difference what is given here. And it goes up. And here you can see the purple is going up all the way. Here they are ascending separately until they lay, and now they are laying into your gracile cuneate nucleus present laterally in the posterior part of medulla oblongata and gracile nucleus present posteriorly in the medial part of your medulla oblongata. And once they synapse, the second order neurons start, and for that instead of just going up, they are coming in the front. So this fibers which are coming in the front is what we call this one as a decussation, sensory decussation, and these fibers are called as, because they are arching before they go up, it is also called the internal arcuate fiber. So they come here and this is where the crossing is happening. So this is of your right side. Same thing, left side will be there. These fibers will come like this up and they will cross this side, and these are crossing this side. So this arching, this is why we call this as a decussation. Since these are your sensory fiber, you call this as a sensory decussation. Now here the color is given is your purple color. You can see that's your medial lemniscus. So it is going through the pons, then through the midbrain. This is your midbrain, and then to your thalamus, again to the same nucleus, ventroposterolateral nucleus, then your posterior limb of ventral capsule, then your corona radiata and your posterior lobe or the parietal lobe or somatosensory cortex, area number 3, 1 and 2. Now these are the sensations which are carried, which I told you. They carry a fine touch or deep touch, pressure, discriminative touch, which is your fine touch, where you will be stereognosis, ability to recognize, 2-point discrimination, stereognosis, conscious proprioception, that is a sense of position and the movement of the different body part. So all this is the function which is carried by these two tracts. So cuneatus will carry it from your upper limb and thorax, gracile is carried from your lower limb and abdomen or lower trunk. Is it okay? So those are again the tract. Now if you put all this in a table, so all these are the main somatosensory tracts or pathway which are coming to our consciousness. So this is our to the consciousness of the thalamus. So if you see pain and temperature with one, so pain and temperature is your lateral spinothalamic. Then light, pressure, light, touch and pressure. So light, touch and pressure is which one again? So this one is your anterior. So anterior is the light touch. Of course some pressure may also be carried, whereas this one fine touch, vibration, conscious proprioception and everything is your dorsal column pathway, that is gracile and gracile fasciculus and cuneate fasciculus. So those are the three tracts. So they all start as this start free nerve ending. This also start as a free nerve ending because it's a pain, temperature and crude touch, whereas here pressure, Meissner corpuscles, Pacinian corpuscle pressure, and then your vibration, Meissner corpuscles, muscle spindle and your tendon organ for your proprioception. You see these are all the receptors which are there. And this is going to second order neuron for both of this is your lamina 4 to 6. So there again substantia gelatinosa, and here it is not in the spinal cord but into your medulla oblongata, where it is synapsing in the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus, and all are going to the same nucleus, ventroposterolateral nucleus of thalamus. Then these are the pathways. So this is called lateral spinothalamic, this is the anterior spinothalamic, and this is your fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus. Now these two pathways will form your spinal lemniscus in your brainstem. This pathway will form your medial lemniscus in the brainstem, and all these are ending in your post-central gyrus, area number 3, 1 and 2. So that's about your two pathways. Now the third one is your spinocerebellar tract. Now spinocerebellar tract is an important tract again. It starts from the spinal cord and ending into the cerebellum. This is a small tract. So that means here you will not see the long journey. That means there is no thalamus involved here, no internal capsule, no corona radiata, no cerebral cortex. It is cerebellum. This is important. Now this one, the name itself says it is from the cerebellum. So cerebellum is again concerned. So the function is proprioception, but this is unconscious proprioception. So conscious proprioception is carried by your dorsal column pathway, fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus, whereas this is carrying your unconscious. So these are again two neuron pathway. So there's a first order and second order only. You don't have third order, whereas the other pathways you got three order. And this is to take this information to the cerebellum. You have altogether there are four tracts are there. So you have the anterior and posterior spinocerebellar tract, which is present in the cerebellum. Then there are other two tracts which we have not mentioned, which is again not seen there. So one is called cuneo-cerebellar. It is starting from the cuneate nucleus of medulla oblongata. That is a cuneo-cerebellar. One more is called rostral. Rostral means cranial. So these are your caudal. Both these are called caudal spinocerebellar. This is the rostral spinocerebellar tract. So let us see the detail. When I say where it starts, you will get the idea. So in spinal cord, especially when the section is taken at your mid-cervical level, you will only see your anterior spinocerebellar and the posterior spinocerebellar. So these are your tracts. This is a posterior and this is your anterior. And remember, both of these are present in your lateral funiculus. So this is your lateral column or lateral funiculus. Now you can see here what we are seeing. Here we are seeing cuneo-cerebellar is here. Okay, posterior spinocerebellar is here. So this one is your anterior spinocerebellar. Let me use. This is your anterior spinocerebellar tract, and the middle one, this one is your which one? Okay, not this one. This one is your posterior spinocerebellar tract. Okay. Now you see here, the information is carried. They go to your dorsal root ganglion. Then now they are entering. Now the relay is happening. Now where the relay is happening? Relay is again different and different. So you see the relay is again second order neuron. This is again in the spinal cord only. It is in the nucleus dorsalis. If you remember, the nucleus dorsalis is also called Clark's column. It's a rex lamina. So where it relay, and from there the fibers are ascending up. So if you look at the anterior spinocerebellar tract, after relaying, it is crossing. You see, this is where it is crossing. It crosses and it ascends now as an anterior spinocerebellar tract. So it is going through your medulla oblongata, pons, and midbrain. It reaches even the midbrain, and again it is crossing back. That means the crossing is nullified. So it has crossed from one side, went all the way, again crossed back. So it became again same side. So it is carrying information from this side, and it is relaying in the cerebellum cortex of same side. So it is again crossed back. So thereby crossing is nullified, and it is actually now it is going all the way down to relay into the cerebellar cortex. So that bundle of fiber here, what we call, there it is the internal capsule and corona radiata, and here it we call peduncle. Peduncle also means the same only, the bundle of white matter. Superior cerebellar peduncle, word is cerebellar. So it goes via superior cerebellar peduncle and end into the cerebellar cortex. That is your anti-spinocerebellar. Whereas the posterior spinocerebellar tract again relays in the same thing in your nucleus dorsalis of the spinal cord, second order neuron. This tract is uncrossed tract. It is reaching up all the way. It is not going more than. So here you got medulla oblongata. So it reaches the medulla oblongata, and from the medulla oblongata it goes and it is relaying into your cerebellar cortex. So the bundle through which it is going, so that bundle is called the inferior cerebellar peduncle. It is again a bundle, just like you have internal capsule corona radiata there. Here you got inferior cerebellar peduncle and superior cerebellar peduncle. Now here we know that there is a cuneate nucleus is there, which we have seen in our cuneate gracilis fiber. Cuneate and gracile pathway we have seen. So from the same cuneate nucleus, you see your fibers are starting. So these are again your fibers are same. These are your posterior spinocerebellar fibers only. So this one is what we call as a caudal. So this was your caudal spinocerebellar is your posterior. Same thing, if you go up from there, you have the rostral fibers which are starting from here, and it is going and via the inferior cerebellar peduncle to the cerebellum. So thereby this also, this is a very small. So let us see this thing in our details now. Let us see this one again. Now compare one with the other one. Now you see here, again the question comes, when they both are carrying the same activity, why do we need two? Again the answer also lies in the same. It is because again information is there from two different areas. Topography is different. So anterior can also be called ventral, posterior is also called as a dorsal. Now, so let us see what we have. So here we got here, this is what is the information. This information, anterior is carrying information from lower limb, whereas the posterior is carrying information from lower limb and lower trunk. You see upper limb is not there in this picture. That is the reason we have other two tracks which will do the information from the upper trunk and the upper limb. But right now both in the spinal cord are carrying one from the entirely lower limb, other from the lower limb and the lower trunk, lower back. So what they are carrying the coordinated movement and the posture information, which is the unconscious proprioceptive information. So first order neuron is the dorsal root ganglia. For lower limb it is located from L2 to S3. For your lower limb and your lower trunk, this is located from T1 to L2. So that means if you take a spinal cord section and it will not be seen, the anterior is seen only in your L2 to S3 segment, whereas posterior is seen only from T1 to L2. Above that you don't have and below that you don't have. So this is what is the interesting information what we have here. So it is starting from your dermatome, dorsal root ganglion, and then it is coming your Clark's column or nucleus dorsalis, where we have a second order neuron, and from there it is going to the brainstem. So anterior goes only the medulla oblongata, whereas the posterior goes till your midbrain and goes via the superior cerebellar peduncle and anterior via inferior peduncle. It is entering into your cerebellum. So this one is your cerebellum. So it comes here. So thereby this is your medulla. So through this it will come like this. If you see through this, it is coming like this and it is entering. This is your anterior spinocerebellar, whereas your posterior spinocerebellar goes through medulla, pons, midbrain, then cross to the opposite side and then again come here via superior cerebellar. So again here also you can see, in this case first we look at our anterior. So anterior one and the posterior. So let us see anterior and posterior. So you can see here anterior is here, blue color, comes all the way, goes here via your medulla oblongata, pons, and something went wrong. Correct only, this is anterior. Yeah, so anterior is a crossed fiber. So you can see here anterior spinocerebellar shown here. So it comes, crosses here, then reaches up as an anterior spinocerebellar tract. So it is going through your spinal cord, medulla oblongata, pons. Now this one is your midbrain, the necker-like structure, the undergarment, underwear-like structure, midbrain. Then via superior cerebellar peduncle, it is entering into your cerebral cortex. Now the same information is also via the middle cerebellar peduncle, it is given to the opposite side. That is what it means, another blue one. This is additional information. Whereas the anterior, if you see, the one is anterior is done. Posterior, if you see, the posterior is green in color. It starts as it is, relay in the dorsal column, and it is going behind. So this one is what we call as a posterior. Remember the posterior section in the spinal cord. Now it is ascending as your posterior spinocerebellar uncrossed fibers. It goes to the medulla oblongata and enter via the inferior cerebellar peduncle and goes to the cerebellar cortex. So it is not entering the pons or midbrain. So this is inferior. So these are your uncrossed. This, though it is crossed, it is again coming back and becoming your uncrossed. So this is how it is. See here, it goes up there and via these fiber it is going down there. So thereby it is relaying to both the side. So now you can see, we will continue the second order neuron. On both the side, we said it is going to the Clark's column, which is lamina number 7. And here it is in case of your T1 to L2 for your lower trunk and the lower extremity, whereas your only lower extremity is your lamina 7 as it is, but the segments are different, L2 to S3. Now the anterior will cross the axon dissociate in the white commissure to ascend as the anterior spinocerebellar tract, whereas the axon ascend without crossing as a posterior spinocerebellar tract in your lateral funiculus. So this is again the same thing, and this is the same part we have already discussed. Now the cross tract reaches the cerebellum through the spinocerebellar peduncle and ends in the contralateral hemisphere as a Mosey fiber. So this is ending as a Mosey fiber, the end part. It reaches via the inferior cerebellar peduncle and ends in the same side, ipsilateral, as a Mosey fibers. Now this one is a Netter's image. This also gives us a beautiful idea. So here we have the information is, this one is your, it's little crowded. Where is our dorsal is the red one, ventral is the green one. Okay. So dorsal means posterior, ventral means anterior. So let us see the anterior. The anterior start from here, the green one. It reach, so you see this is here, anterior is here, this is your posterior. So here section of the spinal cord is little different. See, it is little twisted. It is here, this one is anterior, this is posterior, not like the other one. So this is little change. That is the reason. Okay, so it comes like this, and it is relayed here, and after relaying it is ascending as here anterior ventral spinocerebellar tract goes from here. This one is now reaching the medulla. Now this is reaching your pons. This is the pons now. Now via, this is what we call superior cerebellar. Here it is written, see, this bundle is called superior cerebellar. It goes via superior cerebellar peduncle and it is ending. So here also you can see the cerebellum also has got a homunculus. Just like you have a homunculus in the cerebrum, the entire body here also is represented. So here also you see this one we are doing is here anterior. And I told anterior is from taking the information from lower limb. So you can see the green one is coming here and it is ending into the upper part of the cerebellum, which is representing leg part of it. Now if you take your next tract, which is again red in color, which is uncrossed tract, or your posterior or dorsal spinocerebellar, it ascends up through spinal cord. Now this one is going through medulla oblongata. This is also upper medulla. Then via, this is your inferior cerebellar peduncle, you can see here. So, and then goes, now this is to the, again to the lower extremity. You see the red one is going here. The green one also came here. The red one also is here. And part of it also goes, possibly the trunk, maybe here only the trunk is represented. So this is what is your other tract also. So this is again same thing, anterior and the posterior spinocerebellar. Another diagram showing the same thing. Here anterior is coming here, crossing, synapsing, dorsal column crossing and going up, and via superior cerebellar peduncle it is reaching the cerebellum. Then posterior goes here, sorry, this is the posterior which comes here, goes to this side, and without crossing via the inferior cerebellar peduncle ends in your spinal cord. So thereby we say the anterior spinocerebellar is for the entire lower limb, which is giving information like proprioceptive, unconscious proprioceptive impulses from muscle spindle. So that means the entire lower limb, all the muscles, whatever muscles of the lower limb are there. So those where you have the receptor called muscle spindle, and all the muscles will have a tendon which is attached to the bone. So they are called Golgi tendon organ, and they also have a joint, hip joint, knee joint, and all the joint. They have a capsule. So joint capsule will have the receptor. So the joint receptors, and from the tendon you got Golgi tendon organ, and from muscle. So all this information from your lower limb is carried via the anterior spinocerebellar, and whereas the same information from your lower trunk and the lower limb is carried by your posterior spinocerebellar. So those are the two tracts. Now remember, there are two more tracts are there. We still have the upper limb and the thorax pending. That is where the small two tracts comes into picture. Cuneo-cerebellar and the rostral spinocerebellar. So cuneo-cerebellar is a part of your fasciculus cuneatus. So it is your extension, cranial extension of it. Whereas your rostral spinocerebellar is equivalent to your anterior spinocerebellar tract of your lower limb. Remember the anterior spinocerebellar tract. So this is for, we said it is for your lower limb. The entire thing is for your lower limb. So it is equivalent to it. It is just that it is the cranial extension of it. Now information carried is same only. It is unconscious proprioception information from upper half of the trunk and the upper limb. And so this one information is again lower limb only. When I say it is equivalent to the anterior spinocerebellar tract of lower limb, so which means it is carrying information from lower limb. So thereby here you can say that your lower limb is getting information, unconscious proprioceptive information from your anterior spinocerebellar tract, one, and also from the posterior, because here also we are saying lower limb. So posterior spinocerebellar tract and this one, rostral spinocerebellar, all the rostral. So only thing which is actually not getting information from lower limb is your cuneo. And now you may wonder why so many, because we need to balance more from the lower limb than from upper limb. So balance of your lower limb and the lower trunk is very crucial, and thereby the information also, every part, every bit of the lower limb and the lower trunk should be represented in your headquarter of your balance, which is the cerebellum. That is the reason. So thereby this function also is equivalent with this is the information from your lower limb, right? Okay. And this one is from your upper half of your trunk and your upper limb. Now this is C2 to T8, the information is going. It is the neurons terminate on these neurons, and here we have a nucleus terminate on the neurons of accessory cuneate nucleus. So you already have a cuneate nucleus which is busy with your cuneate fasciculus, which is your dorsal column pathway. Next to the cuneate nucleus you will have some more fibers in the medulla oblongata, some more nuclei in the medulla oblongata. They are called as the accessory cuneate nucleus. So the fiber come here and terminate here, and from there the postganglionic fiber or postsynaptic fiber will start as a posterior external arcuate fiber. So the fiber, once they synapse, they are now called as the posterior external arcuate fibers, which reaches cerebellum via inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now here these neurons, they originate in the spinal cord is not confirmed. We know that it is there. The why, how come they know that this exists? Because when your all these are damaged, that means when your anterior spinocerebellar is damaged, posterior spinocerebellar is damaged, still the proprioception information from lower limb is not lost. So that means there exists one more part. So where exactly, what specific, that is still not been confirmed, but they definitely know that it is somewhere, it is there. So that is the origin is not confirmed for rostral spinocerebellar. Now it reaches via both superior and the inferior cerebellar peduncle to cerebellum, and this one is via the inferior cerebellar peduncle. So here we can see, so this one is rostral. This is not shown. Which one? The rostral is not shown because we don't know where is the origin. So thereby it is not shown, and more or less once we know where the origin is, the pathway is more or less same like your anterior spinocerebellar. So that is the reason in the picture also anterior spinocerebellar is this one. So thereby you can imagine one more same thing will happen, just that it will go, we don't know from where in the which section of the spinal cord, possibly which lower region of the spinal cord. It comes as it is like this, and it is not relaying. The crossing is also not, we don't know that function whether it crosses or not, but it goes up, and one fiber goes through inferior and another fiber goes through superior. This is what is happening for your rostral, but this has not been confirmed. Whereas your cuneo, if you see, cuneo come all the way and goes there, and it is continuing up into the medulla oblongata, goes to your accessory nucleus of your accessory cuneate nucleus in the medulla oblongata. Then from there the second order neuron start via the inferior cerebellar peduncle goes to the cerebellum. So this will go where? This should go to the upper limb. Here you can see cuneo cerebellar is shown as a brown color. You can see here, that's your cuneo cerebellar. Here you can also see the external cuneate fibers are also shown. So this is cuneate fibers. Cuneo cerebellar goes all the way, and it is shown to the arm. You see, arm is what we told upper limb. So it is going, the brown color is going to the upper limb. Now these three are there. Within one photo we will be finishing this. Spinal cord to the tectum. Tectum is the grey matter in the midbrain. Spino to the olivary. Olivary is a nucleus in the pontomedullary junction. Spino to the reticular. Reticular formation is present. It is a grey matter and white matter combination present in the entire brainstem. So here you can see now in this picture all three are there. You can see spino, tectal, spino-reticular and spino-olivary. So spino-olivary, spino-tectal, you don't have to know because the information here you can see it is information, efferent information influences the consciousness, proprioceptive organ and spino-visual. Anyways, so these pathways are starting all the pathways you can see, all are crossing. And all these pathways, once they cross, if you see the pathway of your spino-olivary, which is the proprioceptive information which is bringing, goes up and it is ending into your your inferior olivary nucleus. That is why it is called as a spino-olivary. Start from the spinal cord and ending into the olivary nucleus, which is here. From there the second order neuron start. Now it is crossing here again. Already it crossed, and again one more time it is crossing, and via the inferior cerebellar peduncle it is going into cerebellum. So that is your spino-olivary pathway. So where it is located, it is anterolateral white column. So yeah, next if you look at the spinotectal, so this is spinotectal is the brown color. Yeah, so it is again information from the spinovisual reflexes. The spinovisual reflex, what we see even in the Hornet syndrome. So that information is carried, the pathway is crossing already, and now the pathway is going. Now you see this will go all the way till your midbrain. This is your medulla oblongata, pons, and midbrain. There it is ending information superior colliculus. If you remember superior colliculus in the midbrain, this is where the information ends. So it is concerned with your spinovisual reflex. That means anything happens, or you are turning or twisting your head or your body in response to a visual symbol, or anything like suddenly a flash of light comes and your neck turned toward that side. So this kind of reflexes is spinovisual reflexes, which are again possible because of this particular pathway. And finally a reticular formation. So reticular formation is present throughout the brainstem. So here the reticular formation, you can see this is your starting, again this is from the conscious. That means this information, it is responsible for our consciousness, awakeness, alertness. So this pathway starts in spinal cord, goes up without crossing. It is passing through the reticular formation of medulla oblongata, reticular formation of pons, and reticular formation of midbrain, and it is relaying in here you have got the nuclei are there. These are your medullary reticular nuclei, pontine reticular, and your mesencephalic nuclei. So it relay there, and it will become the path of something called as a ARAS, ascending reticular activating system, ARAS. In physiology this is what. So this is your pathway, and this is again the details of all your lateral spinothalamic, anterior spinothalamic, spinotectal. Here I told you visuomotor reflexes from the head and eye movement towards the source of stimulation. I told anything flashy there, and our head or neck move toward that direction from where the information came. So that kind of reflexes are visuomotor. So that is from spinotectal. Spinocerebellar also we have seen unconscious proprioception from your lower trunk, upper trunk and all. And fasciculus gracilis and cuneatus with joint sense, conscious proprioception, 2-point discrimination and all. And where also all are, you see these two are ending in your thalamus, whereas your spinotectal, it is ending in your tectum, is present in your midbrain. So the superior colliculus of midbrain. Spinocerebellar here ending in cerebellum. Fastigial gracile and cuneatus, again they are, as far as their termination is concerned, they are terminating in your medulla oblongata of the same side, and these are the location in your spinal cord. Very easy and simple. So I can stop this presentation in this. The descending tract we'll see in the next session. If you guys have any doubt, get back to me, and I should see you in the next part.